latest urban street art or Esperanza Spalding albums, the other students will eat you alive. It can get pretty brutal. Just the other day, everyone cut class to go watch the $1 Million Quartet musical at the Forest Theater, but nobody told me. Now I'm the only one that hasn't seen Lance Guest's rendition of Folsom Prison Blues. It's humiliating.
According to Bylum, the school year shows no sign of letting up as she continues dealing with the everyday stresses of auditioning for the school's production of My Fair Lady, keeping up with the latest punk Afrofusion dance groups, and not having enough fishnet sleeves to wear throughout the week.
Honestly, I don't know how the other students deal with it.
Keep checking theonion.com for more as this story develops.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off here another episode. We do this thing 7 nights a week, live from 7 to 10 at night Eastern Time. You can join us anytime you want. Online, of course, at freetalklive.com, or perhaps, if you're lucky, on your local talk radio station. You can join us on the phones and bring up whatever's on your mind at 603-283-6160. Coming up, Aria's got a story about $20,000 trash cans in San Francisco.
I mean, we don't even have to say more, right? It's already immediately apparent that these were purchased, designed, built by a government.
Yeah, and so I don't know if that's $20,000 per trash can or what they spent developing it. I suspect it's per trash can. We're going to find out.
Per trash can.
We're going to find out more about that coming up here in a bit. It's Ian, Nobody, and Aria in the studio, and we're going to start, though, with the latest on the Trump raid situation that I think we got news of last week. I believe it was our show on Monday night last week when that news was actually breaking during the show. And now, a week later, we know they are ostensibly investigating him for so-called Espionage Act violations.
Well, now they're saying he had nuclear codes, right?
I mean, he probably
that's
did.
what
He
I've
was the
seen.
president.
Is that, he took
they
classified
change those
codes.
things like daily, though. So
You would think.
yeah, I mean, it's because you don't want somebody to find that in the trash or whatever.
At the very least, you'd think they would change it after an administration moves from one to the next.
Yeah, no doubt.
But they are the government, so maybe.
Yeah, but think about that. That being the case, who controls those nuclear codes, right? And
The military?
And asking that question
I presume.
reveals that there is, in fact, incontrovertibly, a deep state.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there is some underlying apparatus that exists beyond the threshold of power of the government, the one that determines who has access to the nuke codes, the one who changes the nuke codes, the one who ultimately controls all of them.
I think that's probably done by various functionaries in the military. Certainly,
I'm aware, none of whom are elected.
Well, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
And as I'm saying, that's ipso.
I don't know if you've met many military people, but most
I don't know
of
if
them
you
aren't
heard
that
what I
deep.
said. My point was it is ipso facto proof of the existence of the deep state.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, it's just
How could it
part
not
of
be?
It's part and parcel of the state as it is. I mean,
Extraneous to the elected government.
Let's start with definitions. How do you define the term deep state?
I wouldn't attempt to in a way that I was going to, have to do it and defend it on national radio.
well, I mean, if you're going to
so
talk
reluctantly is how you define it.
if you're going to talk about something, you should have a definition for it. I mean, generally,
Well, I gave a loose definition
Otherwise, you
for
don't
it,
know what you're talking about.
which is, an institution that exists extraneous to the elected government. I literally just gave that as my
Well,
definition.
when
But
you
you'll be
say-
like, well, technically, it's not extraneous to.
I guess the problem with that definition to me is it's so broad as to be obvious. I mean, we all know that there are government employees who are not elected. The guy who collects your garbage isn't elected. The guy who
Mailman.
most
all of them.
government there's only like
99.99%
500 and change that are elected.
I mean, we in this room know that.
So,
but I guarantee you the average American thinks that their government is almost fully elected.
But wait, are you?
You
I
think?
don't think that could be the case. Are you
I mean,
saying
they've never voted for third lieutenant, second
Half of Americans
battalion
don't
and
vote in the first place. They just think the system works just fine as it is.
I don't know what they think. They may think they can't change the system. It would be interesting to ask non-voters why they don't participate. I wouldn't want to speculate about that. But it sounds to me like your definition of deep state is anything not elected within the state.
Well, see, this is why I don't
Should
want to
be
give a hard
99 point.
definition. They can be picked apart.
Well, I'll give a definition.
Okay.
My understanding of it, I personally, I'm not a subscriber to the idea of the deep state. I think the idea of the deep state is one that is designed to get conservatives all kinds of like conspiratorial, paranoid, and believing that they can somehow oust this secretive state. So to me, the deep state, as my understanding is, it's a state below the state. It's a state that is more secretive. You don't know necessarily who's in charge of it. The CIA might be an example at some level of a deep state operation. What is your understanding of it, Nobody?
Deep state, for me, generally, and I've never heard it formally defined, but what I've inferred from it when people use the term is that it's basically, in theory, the people in charge of the government are the elected people. Okay.
Well, I have the definition of deep state here.
I'd like to hear his.
You got 435 in the House of Representatives. You got 9 Supreme Court justices. Okay, they're not
appointed.
elected, but indirectly they're selected by elected. And you've got a president and a vice president, and that's generally considered to be. It's generally, most people would say that if all of those people got together, they could change literally anything about the government. The idea behind the deep state, from my point of view, is that there's actually an inversion of control where there are elements inside the government that are actually in control, whereas the people that we're electing for are just more or less figureheads.
But are the people who are in control, in your understanding of it, secretive, or are they known?
Well, it's definitely not acknowledged that such people exist, so it would have to be secretive.
Okay. What did you pull this definition from?
Well, there's 2 definitions. One of them uses the word secretive and one of them doesn't.
Okay.
So I guess it depends on which one you want to go with. One of them comes from Oxford.com, or I don't know, it comes from Oxford Languages, whatever that is, dictionary.com. The other one comes from Wikipedia.
Okay.
It's a body of people, typically influential members of government agencies or the military, believed to be involved in the secret manipulation or control of government policy.
Okay. So an underground secretive thing. Got it. And which one was that? Oxford?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I suppose they both use the word secretive. So I guess the question is,
what does the other one say?
Well, it says almost exactly the same thing. It just puts the word secret at a different location.
Okay, where's that one from?
Wikipedia.
So the fantasy from the conservatives is that there's this evil deep state out there, and that's why the state's so bad. It's these evil people. We don't know who they are, but we know who the good people are, is what they say. And we need to put more of the good people in so they can do something about the evil deep state and make the state a good, loving, conservative organization again. And it's this ridiculous conspiracy theory that is completely designed to misdirect these people from actually turning against the idea of the state. Instead, which is a possibility, right? Like the more they raid their guy like Donald Trump, the more likely some of them are going to come off the fence or get on the fence and say, okay, this whole police state thing is crazy. I don't support this anymore. But if they believe that it was actually done at the behest of the secretive deep state, well, then they just need to elect people harder and vote harder and then put the right people in, and then the deep state will be ousted.
That doesn't necessarily follow. For one thing,
no, it's ridiculous.
If there is a deep state, and I think to a great extent that there really is, the thing is, well, for one thing, if you've got a computer program and the rot goes deep enough, you can't fix it. You have to just start over. And the thing about the deep state, what's their number one priority going to be? Controlling elections. Okay. Well, and
continuing their power, of course.
And yeah, exactly, continuing their own power and getting people in there that they can control, who aren't gonna
a la Epstein.
rock the boat. Well, Epstein is. I think it's likely that he probably did gather a lot of blackmail material, and one of the things that you'd want to do if you were the deep state is get a bunch of people who can be blackmailed into office so that whatever they claim their principles are, you can get them to change them if you really need them to.
Sure.
And, you know, it's hard for me to believe that there would not be a deep state with it that's at least vying for control when you consider that the CIA, for example, rigs elections all over the world. So if they don't rig American elections, you have to ask yourself why. Because they have morals? I think we can eliminate that as a possibility. So what would prevent them from becoming a deep state tomorrow, even if they weren't today? And if they can do it tomorrow, why didn't they do it yesterday?
Coming up, apparently Trump has sent a message directly to the Attorney General. And Aria, you've got what text was, allegedly. And also, apparently, they seized his passports while they raided his home last week. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
This is novelist Tom Robbins. When my mother was diagnosed with glaucoma, her conservative Virginia physician told her there was only one treatment that might ease her pain and save her eyesight. That treatment was medical marijuana, which he could not prescribe. I offered to get her some and teach her how to use it effectively, but my father objected because marijuana was against the law. So my mother, who loved to read and walk in nature, was condemned to grow cruelly, unnecessarily blind. Tragedies like this happen all the time, but they don't have to keep happening. To learn more about medical marijuana, call the Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or visit them on the web at mpp.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
And you can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have waiting for you there. Free Talk Live is brought to you, by the way, by Bitcoin.com. You head over to Bitcoin.com, start learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Just click Get Started at the top of the page to do that, and they'll give you some introductory videos there. You can spend as much or as little time looking at those as you like, but I recommend watching at least one of them so you get some of the basic concepts down before you decide to get into a little deeper and possibly get your first Bitcoin Cash or a fraction of a Bitcoin or whatever. You can buy fractions of these things, by the way, which is important to know. So you learn the basics by clicking Get Started at the top of the page at Bitcoin.com. Plus, they got the latest news headlines from the world of crypto all over the place over at news.bitcoin.com. That's news.bitcoin.com. As we continue here, we're kind of giving you an update on some of the latest news with regards to Donald Trump, and his home, of course, was raided last week, which, you know, I ultimately think is good news. Not because I wish anybody to be raided per se. It's a pretty awful experience. But because there are people out there, mostly conservative types, Trump fans, who have been back the blue flag wavers for the last forever. And this is going to get a lot of those people to think twice about supporting, at the very least, the federal police state. And I think that there's some value in that. We're also seeing more people talking about national divorce as a result of this. So people are moving further in that direction towards the idea of ending any kind of arrangement with the federal government. And I think that that is ultimately the true benefit from this. Whether or not charges come from it, if charges come from it, then that's even better for us. You know, so we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
See, I actually had gotten to the point where I was thinking, you know, if Trump runs again, I might just vote for him, just because, you know,
well, it's not like it matters.
A lot of the stuff. I mean, a lot of the stuff that they say about him is crap, and I don't like lies. So I was thinking maybe I'll vote for him, and then he starts talking about death dealers or death penalty for drug dealers, and I'm like, well, as a matter of principle, I refuse to vote for anybody who wants to kill me, because that's just a bad plan.
Yeah, you would think that after however many decades of the insane war on drugs, that more people would be coming around to understanding that this is an abject failure and it just needs to end. And it's a shame to see Trump, who has worked within the entertainment industry, so you know he's worked with plenty of drug users and has probably been fairly close to people who've bought drugs and or sold them. But you know, he's pandering to the conservative right. He thinks this is going to be a winning issue for him, I guess.
And there's very few people. I mean, the politicians are still all enthusiastic about the drug war, but are even conservatives? I mean, do they really think that this is a good use of their money?
Well, it depends on which conservatives you ask, right? Like when cannabis legislation and psilocybin legislation came up in the New Hampshire State House, a lot of them spoke out in favor of the drug war, saying things like, oh, well, if we legalize it, what are we going to do to keep kids off of it? Because that's the mentality they use. Well, how are we going to keep the kids safe from all of these things? And so that is what justifies the drug war in their minds.
Yeah, see, I don't get that. It's like, okay, two possibilities. With the drug war, they use drugs and then you throw them in prison. Without the drug war, they use drugs, but you don't throw them in prison. So if you're actually concerned about the welfare of the kids, well, doing drugs and not getting thrown in prison is much safer than doing drugs and getting thrown in prison.
Remember when you were running for governor in 2020, you had a debate with the other gubernatorial candidate, Karen Testerman, here in New Hampshire. So it was the two of you guys versus the current governor, who's Chris Sununu, in the primary. The media was completely ignoring you and Karen's campaigns. So we put together a debate, and we did it online, and Karen sounds great on a lot of issues issues when it comes to economics, but when I asked that question about the war on drugs, boy, she was fully in the camp of continuing the war. So it's like, I don't think conservatives have learned their lesson on this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe the ones I talk to are just more libertarian leaning.
Well, they don't live in a world
she
where
seemed libertarian leaning on
until
a lot
you
of
asked
issues.
about the war on drugs.
I mean, they don't live in a world where the options are, okay, the kids are going to do drugs and throw them in prison, and kids are going to do drugs and not throw them in prison. They live in a world where somehow, if they can just crack that whip enough and just, rattle that belt enough, somehow they can keep their kids from doing drugs in the first place.
They need to piss off into their own little world where they can do that and leave the rest of us the hell alone.
That's where national divorce comes in. That's why we need to encourage conservatives to move to places like Texas and Florida and encourage libertarians to move here to New Hampshire. That's the thing. Like, yeah, I'm willing to work with a conservative on the issues in which we agree, but I will not forget that this person does not understand what liberty is. They understand they want liberty to live their life how they want to live it. They want to be free to go take their kids to church, and that they want to be free to have their, conservative barbecue or whatever it is that conservatives do. But they don't want other people to be free to do things that they disagree with. And as long as they have that viewpoint, they'll never ever be true allies.
I think that's true to an extent. And actually, when I've been talking to conservatives lately, what I've been trying to focus on is basically, if we can get the liberals out of our hair, then there's no reason that every county in New Hampshire has to be the same. There's still a limited number of free staters. So if we wanted to reconcentrate in specific areas, then it would, basically you could have some counties that are a conservative paradise and some counties that are a libertarian paradise. And the thing that seems to make a difference is borders. It's like everybody knows there's crazy laws in Saudi Arabia, but almost nobody wants to go to war with them to make them change their crazy laws because, it's
let them be.
Yeah, exactly. Let them do their thing over there.
That's what I always the abortion issue, of course, became a big deal this summer with the whole Roe versus Wade overturning and what preceded that, where the draft opinion leaked and all the protests and everything. And it's just like, why don't people just go to a place that's more like them, live in that place, and forget about what's going on across the border? It's like, are you really going to invade? Like, if people did that, right? Like if a bunch of liberals moved into California and a bunch of conservatives moved into Texas and other like-minded states and such, and then we did see the breakup of the United States, and these became independent nations, would we actually see troops crossing borders over this issue?
No, of course not.
I think there might be times when troops crossed borders. I think it would
over
probably
this issue.
be rare.
Over the issue of abortion. Meaning that, there's babies being killed over there in California, so Utah mounts up
I realize you use it as an example, but I mean, the whole idea, it's silly on its face, right? That's never going to happen.
I hope not. But it's
not over abortion.
Yeah, I hope you're right about that.
I would imagine that if troops crossed borders, which wouldn't completely surprise me, but I would imagine it would be about something that directly affects the states involved.
There's more coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can join us and bring up what you want. It's Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. William Ruto has been named as the next president of Kenya. However, the announcement has come with allegations of vote rigging and some violence. He was announced president by the Kenyan Electoral Commission after 6 days of vote counting. Ruto beat his closest competitor, Raila Odinga, as FSN's Hilary Asega reports.
William Ruto will now be Kenya's 5th president. He garnered over 7 million votes against his closest rival, Raila Odinga, who got 6.9 million votes. William Ruto has been the deputy president for 9 years. In his acceptance speech, the president-elect has called on Kenyans to unite and focus on development. He says, despite the hurdles faced along the electoral process, he will run a transparent and democratic government. International observers have also applauded the electoral process of Kenya, saying it was free and fair.
The United Nations says 6.6 million people in Afghanistan are food insecure and humanitarian aid appeals remain massively underfunded. It comes a year after the Taliban returned to power in Kabul. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from UNHQ in New York.
The humanitarian coordinator for Afghanistan, Ramiz Alakbarov, says the UN has managed to maintain an unprecedented aid lifeline in the country, reaching 22.9 million people with at least one form of assistance. But he said widespread famine continues to devastate the region, alongside an economic collapse, which has increased the price of food by nearly 30% in the last year. The UN says it's been able to work alongside the Taliban, who have provided consistent security and access for aid workers across the country. But Mr. Alakbarov said $2.6 billion is still needed to fully fund aid operations.
The US has hit back at Iran after it said author Salman Rushdie was worthy of blame following his attack in New York. Rushdie was stabbed multiple times at a literary event last week and is recovering in hospital. The Chinese government says it's conducted more military drills near the island of Taiwan. The move comes in response to another US congressional delegation's visit to the island, which China claims as part of its territory. FSN's Ira Spitzer has more.
The U.S. congressional delegation's visit to Taiwan, which wasn't announced in advance, comes on the heels of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to the island earlier this month and prompted strong criticism and more military exercises from Beijing, which regards the visits as a provocation and considers the island part of its territory. Taiwan has its own government and unofficial diplomatic relationships with other countries such as the U.S. The 5 U.S. lawmakers met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, who said that Taiwan is determined to maintain the status quo amid concerns about Chinese aggression.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're just kind of using the whole Trump situation to go off on all different tangents at the moment. We haven't even really gotten into to the news yet. He apparently texted the Attorney General and sounded like he was asking for a favor. Arya's got that story.
I don't know, man. What caught my attention was that people on the left freaking out and saying that it was a veiled threat. And I don't know how the hell they were reading that came up with that.
Let's say what the actual text was, because I don't even think we've gotten that far in the discussion yet. But I do want to also let you know about the Liberty in Our Lifetime, or Liberty in Your Lifetime conference that the Free Cities Foundation is putting on. It's their annual conference. This is the second one. It's happening in Prague this year, October 21st through the 23rd. Our very own Mark Edge is going to be speaking at that conference. So you can go there, meet him, and see all kinds of speakers talking about the autonomous cities and intentional communities that are springing up around the world, offering opportunities for settlers to live freer lives. You can get 20% off your tickets by using code FTL20 at checkout. Go to lifetimeliberty.com and plan your trip to Prague, October 21st through the 23rd. It's code FTL20, and you save 20%. You can also follow them on Twitter at handle LibertyIOL. All right, so what was it that Trump allegedly said to the Attorney General at the federal level?
He said, the country is on fire. What can I do to reduce the heat? Which doesn't sound like a threat to me. The way people on the left are interpreting this is saying that, I can throw fuel on this fire if I so choose. When, he literally suggests the opposite. He's like, hey, what can I do to help diffuse the situation? It's like, oh, he's admitting that he has the power to make it worse. Kind of, but that's not what he's getting at. And I think you got to be a special kind of lunatic to read this text message and walk away with that interpretation.
Did you hear what the statement was? Nobody?
I did not.
Can you read it one more time?
So
Marianne?
Trump sent to Merrick Garland, who's the Attorney General for the United States or whatever, the country is on fire. What can I do to reduce the heat? Which to me, it seems like a reasonable text message, right? Hey, people are going crazy out there. What can I do to make people go less crazy? And to be fair, he doesn't have a whole lot of options after they kicked him off of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all of these other social media platforms. It's like, well, not a whole lot, Mr. Trump. They took away your ability to.
Well, but the other thing is, it doesn't matter what he says. If he says, I'm going to have pork chops for dinner, somebody is going to find a way to twist that into something sinister.
He hates police
because because the liberals are completely deranged over this guy, and I don't like him either. He wants to kill me, but I'm not obsessing about him, and they are literally obsessed with this thing.
I like him. He brings me a lot of humor, man. I don't want him to be president again, but, I wish he was back in the public eye because he amused the hell out of me.
Well, it sounds to me like he's trying to ask if there's anything he can do to reduce the heat on himself. I understand that he's acting like, oh, well, I'm concerned for the country. But to me, that sounds like, how do I reduce the heat on Donald Trump?
That's true. They did, execute a search warrant on his estate recently, one of them.
Right.
So
this presumably came after that. This was a recent development, right?
I think the text was sent prior to that.
Really?
I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, so
yes, it was. Well, it was before the warrant was unsealed.
So after the raid,
whatever
then.
that means.
Yeah, after the raid.
Okay.
So
that they did unseal the warrant after that, because I know there's this.
They did, yeah.
The federal system is really weird, and they issue sealed indictments and then they execute sealed warrants.
Lots of secrecy.
Yeah, and then sometimes they're unsealed, sometimes they're not. It's all very confusing.
Yeah, I think he's asking to see, hey, is there anything I can do? Like, what can I do to make this go away? And he's couching it in terms of, oh, well, this will be good for the country if you just, come, let's talk, okay? Let's. He wants to make a deal, right? He's Donald Trump. Before the plea deal comes into play, which of course, if Donald Trump is charged, is he going to take a plea or is he going to trial?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I would tell him never take the plea deal, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the evidence is.
We don't either.
We don't even
know what the charge is.
Well, there aren't charges yet. We just know they've taken apparently 27 boxes of documents from his home Mar-a-Lago. And then if you look at the actual receipt for property, which I only have one page of here, and it's more than one page, obviously. Information here including box with labels like A1 through 15, miscellaneous top secret documents, miscellaneous secret documents, miscellaneous confidential documents. So, the theory is that they're going to string him up on charges of improperly holding or storing these documents. And,
I don't know, man.
Maybe. And if he's convicted of that, then he cannot run for office again.
I know. I'm going to go home tonight.
The funny thing about it is we already know that Hillary Clinton did exactly the same thing in
with
terms
the emails.
Of with her emails, mishandling classified documentation. But when Democrats do it, it's ignored.
She got a pass.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I'm just going to go home tonight with a paint pen and write on the side of my file cabinet, A3 top secret classified information, just to troll the FBI at this point, man. Because that's what they're going off here. That Trump labeled this thing as classified or top secret or whatever.
I think that the documents themselves are labeled.
Well, I'm sure I can find a stamp online that will do that for me.
I'm sure. You can custom make those. Trump also says that they took his passports. According to a post he made on Truth Social, which is his personal social media site.
Because, again, they banned him from Twitter and YouTube. I don't know where else, but I suspect he's banned from most of these platforms.
I think Facebook booted him out a long time ago. But he said, quote, Wow. In the raid by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago, they stole my 3 passports. 1 expired, along with everything else. This is an assault on a political opponent at a level never seen before in our country. Third world, he says.
I like how he uses the terminology stole. I mean, he's correct. They stole his passport.
Right. Without him being
I would
indicted.
like my stolen stuff back, please.
Like, how often does that happen? It probably happens more often than we realize. But, for instance, they took my passport, but they
that's
charged
true, but
me.
we were indicted.
Right. We were charged with something. Trump has not been charged with anything, and they allegedly took his passports. So what's that all about?
I suspect they'll give them back. Wouldn't they have to?
Only if they don't charge him will they give them back, I presume. I mean, if you're going to take the effort of taking somebody's passport, you're going to make them fight for it. Right?
Does Donald Trump really even need a passport to travel?
Yeah, generally you need a passport to get into other countries.
I mean,
What
are they going to say to him in the United Kingdom? Oh, no, Mr. Trump, we recognize you from being the president of the United States, but you don't have your documentation in order.
That's what they'll say, yeah.
Well,
that's insane.
There are places he could probably go, people that he has relationships with. He could probably go to Brazil. He could probably go to the Philippines. Basically third world countries where he's got an in with the local dictator. But
I don't think he's going to do that.
I don't think he will either.
This is good. Ultimately, is good for Trump as far as his image is concerned. I think that he's going to be the guy that fights the quote unquote deep state. This is the deep state, so called, coming after him personally, and I think he's going to have it out with them.
Well, they're handing him that narrative to write. Because, I mean, they're insane, they're incompetent, but they're handing it to him on a platter. Here, spin this however you want, and he can do that. The only way they've inhibited him at any part of this was by kicking him off of Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, it's raising his profile.
Yeah, and the big question to me is why? I mean, all presidents commit crimes while they're in office.
Sure.
They're all war criminals.
All governors do too.
So the question is, why would they go after him specifically? And I think if you asked at least most of his supporters, they would say, well, he's the only person who's been elected since Kennedy who wasn't approved of by the deep state. And they freaked out.
Yeah.
And it fits the reality pretty well.
It's an interesting theory. I know that Peakless Mountaineer, our Saturday night host, is of that belief that Trump's, he's up there with the elites, but he's not in the inner circle, and they are coming after him for that. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Are you about to meet the media? If you're about to be interviewed, do their homework for them. Know this about the person who will interview you. He or she is busy, so expect minimal, if any, preparation. He or she doesn't know as much about your topic as you do. He or she isn't as concerned as you are about getting your message out, so you need to take responsibility. Provide a biography and fact sheet, photographs, or other materials that tell your story. Reporters won't be put off if you supply frequently asked questions. Remember, Public Speaking 101, at the end of the speech, what's the one thing you want them to remember? You can download the document I supply to reporters who interview me and squirm through a video that demonstrates how not to conduct your media interview at www.survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you are invited if you want to join us here. You take control of the airwaves, just dial in at 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
603-283-6160. You can join us online as well. Any old time you want, just head over to freetalklive.com, download archives, interact with other Free Talk Live listeners there, and more. It's all free. Once again, that's freetalklive.com. Coming up, Aria, you're going to tell us about $20,000 trash cans in San Francisco, of course. We'll get into what that's all about. But first, to your phone calls and thoughts, we have Penguin calling in from Virginia. You're on Free Talk Live, Penguin. Stand by, Penguin. I had you muted. Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. I hope everyone's doing well.
Welcome, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, well, I just tuned in, heard you talking about Trump, and I do happen to have a bit of a theory about Trump, and I think it's pretty, I don't like to go too far out in the conspiracy theories. I think it's really very plausible. So if you looked up, recently, Biden's poll numbers, President Joe Brandon is having some pretty awful polling numbers, and the one person who's notably polling worse than Biden at this point is Trump.
Oh, really?
And yeah,
well, and Trump's not president. How is?
They're still asking about him, I guess.
Is polling worse than Biden?
Well, Biden's up right now. I don't remember exactly why, but something's happened in the last few weeks that caused people like, "Yay, Joe Biden!"
Gas dropped below $4.
I guess that was
it. Was $2 when
I know.
I don't remember what the specifics were. I just remember that, I saw something recently at some point within the last few weeks about his poll numbers being up for some reason. Presumably, he went that period of time without saying something moronic or having to get chased off stage by an Easter bunny or something. And that's why it's like, hey, look, guys, he went a whole week without saying anything stupid.
Yeah, I remember the Easter Bunny. I had forgotten up until now. But yeah, no, Trump was polling pretty bad. I mean, he's a liability to, and the MAGA thing in general was a liability to the Republicans. I mean, look, I'm from Virginia. We just elected a Republican governor, big race, pretty good margin and everything, and it was because the guy didn't mention Trump basically once and didn't have anything to do with him and didn't have anything to do with his brand of politics. So anyways, whatever. I mean, I'm not huge into the Republican Democrat politics.
Well, before you go on, Penguin, I did just look here, and they're not up that much, right? Like, to say they're up is a true statement.
Okay.
But the way the media is actually putting it, Joe Biden's approval rating ticks up to its highest level since June. That's like 2 months ago.
He wasn't doing so good in June.
Right. So we're talking about 40%, basically, according to a recent Reuters Ipsos poll.
I got to admire how much spin they managed to put on that, though. It's like, this is highest point in 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. That's the thing that, if anything, gives me more sympathy for the Republicans than the Democrats, is that all the professional liars hate them.
I mean, it worked, right? I didn't know to what extent his numbers were up. I didn't pay any attention to it. I just saw, in the vague periphery of my vision, I knew that Biden's numbers were up to some extent. And that's, as you said, that's technically a true statement. But it's a useless, meaningless statement in the context of what they're actually talking about. But mission accomplished. They got me to be aware that his numbers were up.
Are there any polls where they've asked the same questions about Biden and Trump? I would be really curious.
Well, apparently, Penguin, you're saying they're also asking about Trump, and Trump is even lower?
Well, from what I understand, that's their big selling point. That's the one thing they've been able to say the whole time is that President Trump's, I think it's his disapprovals, even though obviously he's not president. But people's general disapproval when they ask is lower. And so this is obviously they want to. I mean, look, it's a midterms, and it's looks like a really bad midterms for the Dems, and the midterms are always bad for the party of the guy who just became president. And the Dems want nothing. It's their only slim hope is to keep all attention on Trump as much as possible. Like, it rallies his base, but his base isn't the country or the Republican Party. So that's their plan, and it's working great.
Are we sure it's always bad for the party of the sitting president? Because I seem to recall in 2002 that Republicans did really good in the midterms. I'm not 100% certain, but I thought that was correct.
It's not always, but generally.
Okay.
Well, plus this year, somebody predicted that there's going to be a large turnout for the midterms because you've got the Democrats are energized by the Roe versus Wade overturning, and then you've got the Republicans that are going to be energized by the Trump raid. So it could be record level people actually coming out for midterms because historically not as many people will vote during midterm elections as they do during a presidential.
Well, they're almost there. They just need to realize that voting is a useless waste of their time, and then maybe they will actually make a step toward doing something that will actually solve these problems.
So, Penguin, is that why you were calling tonight? Was just to talk about poll numbers, or was there something a little more, something deeper that you had?
Yeah, well, no, I think that's exactly why they want all attention on Trump all the time, and he loves to bring in the attention himself. The more the attention they can keep on Trump and have him ranting on camera and stuff, that's their only strategy. I thought they were just cooked for a decade, honestly. I mean, they're just getting bad press after bad press in the right. I don't know, but
wait. So you're saying that by going after Trump, making him the focus of the media again, media won't be paying attention to anything else they're doing? Is that the idea?
Well, the media pays attention to whatever the Democrats tell them to.
Sure, but what were you saying there, Penguin?
The Dems have been funding candidates all over the country that are well to the right of the average Republican. Or to the
Dems
right,
are funding candidates to the right of Republicans?
Yeah, they've been doing that a lot in the primary elections the whole season, the past few months.
When you say this, do you mean that in the sense of Donald or Ron DeSantis is to the right of what do you mean?
Yeah, to clarify, yeah, like MAGA pop. I really, what does this mean exactly? What does right left mean? But MAGA populist, really hardcore, kind of very also appealing to a very online right. The people that are really raging about libs of TikTok. And
what's the goal by the Dems to fund the far right?
I mean, basically to put in unelectable candidates to office, or candidates that are more easily beat by the the electorate's pretty much in the center. That's why it's the center. So just to make a more competitive election for the Dems, and if they pull it, and they've pulled it off in quite a few places. So it's not disputed. This has been happening all over the country. I've heard it on mainstream outlets, some political commentators, and I've heard it locally. People are pissed off about it. They support,
Interesting.
regular Republican candidates. So they really want the attention on Trump. So somebody like a DeSantis or even like Youngkin in Virginia, who's like very Republican, but like not Trumpy, you know what I mean? Not like going wild and a populist kind of guy, and very electable. I mean, that's the point. Like whatever my opinions of these guys are goons and everything to me.
Well, they need to fund my campaigns then, because no one's less elected as a Republican than me. Where's my money at? Cut me a check.
You never know. If you're already getting that Coke money, you could just get some DNC money.
Historically, that hasn't always worked out well for them because Hillary Clinton, for example, thought Trump would be unelectable and supported him in the Republican primary. Behind the scenes, is my understanding, and then he beat the hell out of her, which was hilarious to watch.
Plus, even if their candidate doesn't win, couldn't they possibly move the so-called Overton window in a more far right direction, forcing other candidates to?
Where suddenly we don't sound so insane by talking about peaceful secession from New Hampshire after they run a bunch of candidates who talk about armed revolution. Suddenly we sound, like we're making sense.
Thanks, Penguin, for the call tonight, man. Appreciate hearing from you. Mehdi is on the line in Canada. You're on Free Talk Live, Mehdi.
Hey, hi, how's it going?
What's on your mind?
Ian, nobody, all right. Yeah, so
Beauty,
it's a good thing nobody's here because you do programming. I just wanted to bring up something as far as the state trying to control cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
And I've brought this up before, so please don't get mad at me, but DARPA hired a company called Trail of Bits to try to find ways to centralize to blockchains. And it's not going to be successful, I don't think, but they're looking for ways that they can centralize it. And some of them are absolutely ridiculous ways, as Arya pointed out last time, that, one way, for example, they said like a 51% attack can go down to 20% if they hold all Bitcoin transactions for an hour or something like that. Like they shut it down for an hour, which of course will drop red flags and everyone's going to be like, what's going on, right? So, it's not like practical ways they might do it, but they're just looking at different theoretical ways. So I think it's important for us in the freedom community, especially if we know computers and we know people that do computers, to spread this out so that we can see where they're hanging their nooses. And so we can loosen it. We can be proactive, like cat and mouse, They're trying to take our currency, but we got to...
Yeah, and they're definitely on the attack. And hang on, Mehdi, I'm not sure if you've gotten to your main point yet. They're definitely on the attack in a way that they've not yet been about going after cryptocurrency companies and going after individuals. Of course, they're going after some of the hosts of this very show in the Crypto 6 case. They're going after Library with the SEC attack on them and Ripple. And now the attack on Tornado Cash. More coming up. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. William Ruto has been named as the next president of Kenya. However, the announcement has come with allegations of vote rigging and some violence. He was announced president by the Kenyan Electoral Commission after 6 days of vote counting. Ruto beat his closest competitor, Raila Odinga, as FSN's Hilary Asega reports.
William Ruto will now be Kenya's 5th president. He garnered over 7 million votes against his closest rival, Raila Odinga, who got 6.9 million votes. William Ruto has been the deputy president for 9 years. In his acceptance speech, the president-elect has called on Kenyans to unite and focus on development. He says, despite the hurdles faced along the electoral process, he will run a transparent and democratic government. International observers have also applauded the electoral process of Kenya, saying it was free and fair.
The United Nations says 6.6 million people in Afghanistan are food insecure and humanitarian aid appeals remain massively underfunded. It comes a year after the Taliban returned to power in Kabul. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from UNHQ in New York.
The humanitarian coordinator for Afghanistan, Ramiz Alakbarov, says the UN has managed to maintain an unprecedented aid lifeline in the country, reaching 22.9 million people with at least one form of assistance. But he said widespread famine continues to devastate the region, alongside an economic collapse, which has increased the price of food by nearly 30% in the last year. The UN says it's been able to work alongside the Taliban, who have provided consistent security and access for aid workers across the country. But Mr. Alakbarov said $2.6 billion is still needed to fully fund aid operations.
The US has hit back at Iran after it said author Salman Rushdie was worthy of blame following his attack in New York. Rushdie was stabbed multiple times at a literary event last week and is recovering in hospital. The Chinese government says it's conducted more military drills near the island of Taiwan. The move comes in response to another US congressional delegation's visit to the island, which China claims as part of its territory. FSN's Ira Spitzer has more.
The U.S. congressional delegation's visit to Taiwan, which wasn't announced in advance, comes on the heels of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to the island earlier this month and prompted strong criticism and more military exercises from Beijing, which regards the visits as a provocation and considers the island part of its territory. Taiwan has its own government and unofficial diplomatic relationships with other countries such as the U.S. The 5 U.S. lawmakers met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, who said that Taiwan is determined to maintain the status quo amid concerns about Chinese aggression.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on Friday's violent assault on satanic verses novelist Salman Rushdie. He's faced an Iranian fatwa threatening his life since the book was published in 1989. He was stabbed nearly 10 times as he was about to address a literary conference in New York, where he was due to tell the audience that America offered safe haven for writers. That turned out not to be the case. Brendan O'Neill is the chief political writer at Spiked.
Very shocking, but at the same time, not particularly surprising, because we know that he's had this bounty hanging over his head for 33 years, courtesy of the Iranian regime. I think it really demonstrates, I think it was a violent form of cancel culture. I think it was, I mean, we do need to wait for more details. It does look like the suspect was a fan of Iran and possibly a fan of Hezbollah as well. So there does seem to be a link between the fatwa and what happened to Salman Rushdie, but we do need more details. But from my first impression, it seems to me to be an incredibly violent form of censorship designed to punish a man whose only crime was to write a novel, and that should be intolerable for anyone who believes in freedom and civilization.
And he says it is the West's pressing duty now to consider whether it has offered enough public defence of Salman Rushdie's freedom of expression. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, William Ruto has been named as the next president of Kenya. However, the announcement has come with allegations of vote rigging and some violence. The United Nations says a year after the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, 6.6 million people are food insecure and humanitarian aid appeals remain massively underfunded. And the US has hit back at Iran after it said that author Salman Rushdie was worthy of blame following his attack in New York. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Zoo visitors watch the mating rituals of the ice cream shop staff, and a serious coworker puts on headphones to focus on his sandwich. Happiness is perpetually fleeting, so try to savor the next few minutes before it disappears once again. This is The Onion Week in Review. FBI officials announced they just can't bring themselves to bust a man who recently downloaded every season of the 1990s television show Picket Fences from a BitTorrent website. While stressing that pirating copyrighted material is strictly illegal, federal authorities expressed their sympathy for the man and claimed that perhaps the story of Sheriff Jimmy Brock and the strange events in a small Wisconsin town is all he has left to cling to.
We have more than enough evidence to bust him for piracy, but if the poor guy really wants to watch all 4 seasons of a 20-year-old CBS drama that nobody remembers, he's clearly going through a pretty big rough patch right now. Frankly, we don't need to make it any worse.
For statistical purposes, we have seized all private data from your personal computer, and we are disgusted with your recent internet search history. You sick f***. For more, keep checking theonion.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. You can join us. The number 603-283-6160. Coming up, the $20,000 trash cans developed in San Francisco by the government there. We will talk about that boondoggle on the way here. Tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Arya.
And you can bring up whatever you want. Plus, Spain is banning air conditioning below 80 degrees during record-setting summer heat. We got the story about that as well, but your calls and
How's
thoughts.
that green energy working out for you, Europe?
Turns out they need energy from Russia, and they're worried they're not going to get it.
Isn't that the amazing thing? But if they had green energy, if they had solar panels and wind and all that nonsense, then why? And you would expect Europe to be on the forefront of this, right? They're the ultra-liberal, socialist Europe. Why the hell don't they have air conditioners running off of solar energy at this point?
Let's go to phones.
Because they can't generate enough. I
know that.
None of these green energy things are anywhere near what they promise.
No, but nuclear would solve the problem.
I want to bring Mehdi back on the line here, though.
Germany took all its nuclear offline.
That's why their ACs are set at 90 degrees.
We can get into that in a little bit, but we got Mehdi on the line here. He wanted to talk about cryptocurrency and the attacks against it by the governments of the world. And Mehdi, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's really essential that our currency, meaning freedom-loving people like us, whoever wants freedom, it's essential that our currency is not going to be centralized. And I think that's a very important thing. The government can say whatever they want with guns and abortion and this and that, but at the core of everything, if the currency is what makes everything move, whether it's the U.S. dollar, whether it's gold, whatever, currency, right? And if they if they centralize the way we can exchange value among each other, that's a big deal. Like I'm not going to like that. No one's going to like that at all. And an example of this is this Tornado Cash, the guy who did the Ethereum mixer. And not to take away from the Crypto 6 stuff, of course, it's crazy what they're doing there, but I don't know how much I could talk about.
The Tornado Cash thing is much worse, what they're doing and what they're doing to Crypto 6. I mean, Crypto 6, they're just targeting 6 individuals. Of course, they've targeted many others for similar charges, and they all took plea deals in the past, so it's not like we're the first. But
we're the first who didn't take plea deals.
Well, with the exception of Morpheus out in Arizona, we are the first. And so they're going after some individuals.
What happened to Morpheus?
Convicted. He made the mistake of taking a money laundering charge to court when it was pretty clear.
That's right, but they dropped the money transmission charge.
They did, yeah. They had him dead to rights, unfortunately, on the money laundering charge. So, I mean, it wasn't really much of a case, in my opinion, looking at it from the outside. But that said, Mehdi, the situation with Tornado Cash is particularly bad. For listeners that don't know, this went down last week, where the federal government Treasury Department announced that they are sanctioning a technology. They're sanctioning a mixer for Ethereum on the internet called Tornado Cash that is essentially just code that's running on the Ethereum blockchain platform. And they're saying that if you touch that code, if you interact with that code, you will be guilty of a felony for violating sanctions. And then, continuing with this particular thread, the Netherlands police arrested one of the parent programmers of Tornado Cash last week, and he's being charged with various different things. We thought for a moment they were going to extradite him, but it's actually he's facing charges in the Netherlands. So this is an international attack by multiple governments against privacy technology. And this is a huge attack on the world of cryptocurrency, especially if they get away with it. And ultimately, the big question is, how do you challenge sanctions?
And was it a government or was it a corporation that said, hey, if any of your Ethereum or your tokens or whatever went through Tornado Cash at any point, we're blacklisting all of them? Who was that?
Corporations are doing that. There's various different companies.
Not that that's any better.
No, USDC is one of the world's largest stable coins, which are crypto tokens backed by dollars, ostensibly. They blacklisted a bunch of addresses and froze their funds. And then just within the last few days, there was news about a so-called decentralized derivatives exchange called DYDX that has now blocked an undisclosed number of users' accounts because funds in their wallets had passed through Tornado Cash at some point. So, quote,
insane.
Many accounts were blocked. This is according to the exchange. Many accounts were blocked because a certain portion of the wallet's funds were associated at some time with Tornado Cash, unquote. So
that's really disappointing, especially from an exchange that named themselves with a calculus joke.
Is that what that is?
Well, they trade derivatives, and DYDX is what is the derivative of Y over X.
Ah, okay. So there you go, Mehdi. Yeah, this is really bad news.
Yeah, and so there's something that I read, a tweet, well, it was on Facebook, but it was a screenshot of a tweet of someone put, and it's really sent chills down my spine regarding this case. I don't know if it's true or not. You can tell me if this is actually a correct statement. And this is going to be a dystopian future, and this is going to be crazy if this is true. There is a guy who is going to jail because he wrote an open source code that a bad guy used to do bad things.
That's correct.
And
that's the Tornado Cash programmer.
Is going to jail. And the guy who wrote the open source, so this is going to discourage. If this goes through, it's going to discourage anyone from doing open source. Because
what it'll do is it'll discourage them from doing it publicly. So it'll make it so that everybody that's writing these technologies will keep themselves anonymous, which is the smartest move one of the smartest moves Satoshi Nakamoto and whoever it was that created Monero, and some believe it was Satoshi Nakamoto who created Monero. There's the smartest move that those people made was keeping themselves anonymous, because you better believe the cops would be kicking in their doors too.
Oh yeah.
The greatest trick the devil ever played is convincing the world that he didn't exist.
I thought it was that one melon grab he did.
The usual suspects.
What?
Yeah, I just
it's a T-shirt, man.
Okay. Great. What's that, Mehdi?
Yeah, I think it's just absolutely crazy that someone is going to jail for writing an open source code that a bad guy used to do bad things. I mean, it's open source code. How can he get in trouble for writing a code that's open source?
Yeah, that's ultimately the question. Now, again, maybe he'll win. Maybe it'll come down to a jury trial, and the jury will say, this is ridiculous, set this guy free. But that doesn't mean that he gets his time back that he had to sit in a prison cell for. And, anyway.
We also don't know what he was actually charged with. We know that he wrote code for this project, but maybe he went out and promoted it to somebody that he knew was doing something illegal. You don't know.
But control freaks they've been kicking this horse. They've been beating down this door for decades, right? They've been saying this gun manufacturers should be held accountable for what people do with guns. The writing has been on the wall about how people use their tools and how we should hold the tool manufacturers accountable. As long as I've been alive, it was with firearms through most of it. Now it's like, we got to hold the coders responsible for how people use their programs. It's just another aspect of the same lack of accountability that they've been beating on for the last 30, 40 years.
Thank you, Mehdi, for the call tonight. I do appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. They did hint at, in their press release, they're called the FIOD, F-I-O-D, in the Netherlands, FIOD.nl. They say he's suspected of involvement in concealing criminal financial flows and facilitating money laundering through the mixing of cryptocurrencies through the decentralized Ethereum mixing service Tornado Cash. So it sounds like money laundering charges and whatever the charges of concealing criminal financial flows, which sounds like money laundering to some extent.
Do you have to do any KYC to put a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain?
Of course not.
Okay.
I mean, it's a decentralized application. Anybody who wants to, I think they just pay whatever the gas fees are and put it out there.
Yeah, but you got to stay anonymous, man. If you're putting out there a tool that can be used in a way that the governments don't like ever, stay anonymous.
Yeah, that's the real takeaway from this is if you're programming something, the next great privacy technology, as tempting as it must be to say, hey, I did this, right? Like, hey, I'm a good programmer. Look at the work that I've done. Get your just attention for that, right? Get patted on the back by the world programming community or whatever. Possibly get hired as a consultant, or there's money to be made, right? If you're a good programmer. In this case, you'll end up in prison cells, the way it's looking. So this is pretty awful what's happening to this guy. And they, again, also said they cannot rule out multiple arrests. So they're looking for who else might be involved in promulgating this particular technology. Maybe he wasn't the only programmer. More coming up here in moments. You can join us. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Free Talk Live.
You're privileged to drive the road. You must follow the law.
No, I don't have to.
You're going to double park and you're going to make a left-hand turn in front of a cop?
Can I respond to you here, Barbara?
Go right ahead.
I'm not going to run a red light in front of a cop because he has a gun and is willing to hurt me, but I've run plenty of...
Wrong. He's not going to hurt you. He's going to give you a ticket.
Oh, but if I decide not to pull over, what will he do?
Well, you're not obeying the law.
Barbara, I don't obey arbitrary words written down by strangers. I obey natural law, Barbara. That means if I do something, I expect consequences will come from that, sometimes good, sometimes bad.
You want a red light, somebody comes around and you kill him.
I would never run a red light like that. When I run a red light, I stop first, look around, make sure no one is in danger, and then I go through.
You are such a phony.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open here, and you can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I did actually find some more news about Tornado Cash, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important stories of the year so far in the world of cryptocurrency, where the U.S. federal government is targeting now a technology and saying, this is now sanctioned. That means that it is at the level of interacting with someone from Iran or North Korea to simply interact with a piece of technology.
I mean, you had mentioned earlier how smart, how prescient Satoshi Nakamoto, that's the creator of Bitcoin, was to remain anonymous. But I mean, can you imagine the charges of money laundering that they would hit Satoshi Nakamoto with if he did come forward? I mean, can you imagine how much Bitcoin has been sent to an Iranian or a North Korean or whatever that's flagrantly violated U.S. sanctions or whatever, and that would not have been possible without the creation of Bitcoin?
I want to get into it further, but Major Payne is on the line in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
What's on your mind?
With you. Well, I got a couple things on my mind. I got a fresh bone of news out of Minnesota. And then I want to break down the Latin linguistics of the word patriot.
All right.
But first off, what's going on in Minnesota? I believe it's Minneapolis.
Are you asking me? No, okay. I think
Are you there?
I think we just lost him right after he said that.
Yeah. Well, he'll call back.
Yeah.
We'll put him on hold. Maybe he has a bad cell or something like that.
Perplexing. I thought for a minute he was asking me, I'm like, how the hell do I know, man? I don't know.
So we already mentioned there was one of these quote-unquote decentralized exchanges that has blacklisted the sanctioned addresses. So the U.S. government came out with a list of addresses that are related to Tornado Cash that say you cannot do business with these addresses because they're related to Tornado Cash. If you've gotten Ethereum out of Tornado Cash, then that is essentially bad Ethereum now. It is dirty Ethereum.
How does a decentralized exchange do this, though?
It's not decentralized enough.
Yeah,
the people who are running it decided, whatever amount of them, decided to make these changes and block users based on the fact that they allegedly had some money come out of Tornado Cash. And it's not just this one exchange. According to CryptoSlate.com, Aave, Uniswap, and Balancer,
Uniswap,
which are three of the largest so-called decentralized exchanges on the planet, and more reportedly have now banned wallets which have interacted with Tornado Cash. A centralized data set created by TRM Labs appears to be responsible for the accounts being banned.
Wait, so if you create a new wallet and you send all of your tokens and all of your Ethereum to this new wallet, then you didn't directly associate with Tornado Cash in this new wallet, even if your funds did.
It's not clear if they're allowing any hops between the wallets, because ultimately, like you say, anybody can easily create new wallets and move funds from one to the next. They could then claim, well, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, and how can you prove that it was me? But it doesn't matter to these people. They just don't want to touch anything that's coming out of this sanctioned entity.
This is insane. Like,
it is.
The Corner News here, one of the oldest cryptocurrency accepting places here in Kenya. I think they actually stopped taking cryptocurrency, but regardless,
it's so sad.
Let's
After almost a decade.
Yeah, I know. Let's assume they didn't though, and suddenly, they've been taking Ethereum or whatever, and now suddenly, they've got 5 Ethereum tied up, and they're like, you can never use this. It's been burned, basically. You can never use it again, because at one point, the people who gave you this Ethereum for those Coca-Colas, for those cigarettes, or whatever they were buying, passed it through the Tornado Cash. I don't know why I always say Thunder every time it comes around.
Thunder Cash sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be my decentralized alternative, would be Thunder Cash. But,
they would target you too.
Well, I wouldn't make it known that it was me.
Right.
I can't interact with cryptocurrency at the moment, so it's definitely not me, whoever's out there creating, Thunder Cash.
You're not a programmer anyway, are you?
No, certainly not.
Several decentralized applications on the Ethereum network have now implemented code changes to revoke access from quote-unquote sanctioned addresses. The currently identified protocols are Aave, which, for listeners that don't know, this is one of the big crypto loan platforms. You could take your Ethereum or your USDC or your wrapped Bitcoin or whatever, and you go into Aave, and they give you a rate, like whatever the current market rate is for lending on this. They'll pay you a APR or APY or whatever to loan money to their system,
and it's usually pretty generous.
Not from what I understand, but I don't use the system myself. But somebody I know did look into it, and it was like 1% to 2%.
Okay, but in the grand scheme of how banks work, 1% to 2% is pretty generous.
Yeah, that's true. Per year. And so
per year, that's kind of weak.
But it's a lot more to pull it out. So they want to reward people to put crypto into the platform so other people can pull it out, right, as loans. And the loans range based on how much demand there is. So if there's a lot of demand for a certain token, then the loan rates are much higher. You might pay 15, 20% or something like that, whereas if it's not as much demand, it might only be 5% or 4%. It's kind of an interesting way they had it set up, but they're obviously not decentralized enough, because now they have locked out any access to the sanctioned addresses from Tornado Cash and also Uniswap, which is, I believe, the largest decentralized Ethereum swapping platform on the planet, last I heard. Other ones I'd not heard of, called Ren, Oasis, and I've heard of Balancer. So multiple platforms out there doing this. They identified the GitHub repositories in question. The address screening that has been put into place revolves around a company called TRM Labs, a compliance company. Boy, I wish those people didn't exist. Anybody with the name compliance in their
I wish the institutions with which they were writing code that it was compliant with would also cease to exist, because none of this has been held up in any U.S. court. None of this has been tried in a U.S. court. It has yet to be determined whether or not
the U.S. bureaucrats saying something.
Yeah, and it's yet to be determined whether or not they're constitutionally even allowed to do this.
And that's the question, is how do you determine that? Who can just go and has the standing to say, I'm challenging this decision by the Treasury Department to sanction this technology?
What, this guy they arrested in Iceland or wherever it was, Denmark, I don't remember the place now.
Yeah, the Netherlands.
Netherlands, that was it.
Would he have the standing to do that? I don't know.
If they charged him in the U.S., I would think so.
Which they haven't done.
Yeah, but if they don't charge him, then no, you have to be a victim of government overreach.
The amount of power that is in the hands of these unelected bureaucrats, to go back to what we were talking about in the first hour, unelected bureaucrats running the Treasury Department, the amount of power is unsurpassed. All they have to do is wave their little pen and say, we're going to add you to the sanctioned list. Boom. Now you are a persona non grata. Your business is done. All these other businesses out there are going to stop talking to you, and you're lucky if you don't get snatched up and thrown into a prison cell.
I mean, we just watched all of that happen here. I mean, this guy, he's been locked up. He's been thrown into a prison cell and being charged with money laundering or facilitating money laundering, some sort of nonsense like that. But yeah, just the flick of a pen from a bureaucrat, and all of these things have come to pass.
This company, TRM Labs, the compliance company, they offer their services to decentralized apps via an API. The page on their website refers to the tool as applicable for, quote, new Russia-related designations, unquote. However, following the OFAC move to sanction all address related to Tornado Cash, it appears that users that have interacted with Tornado Cash are now also being labeled as sanctioned and banned from these platforms. More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. William Ruto has been named as the next president of Kenya. However, the announcement has come with allegations of vote rigging and some violence. He was announced president by the Kenyan Electoral Commission after 6 days of vote counting. Ruto beat his closest competitor, Raila Odinga, as FSN's Hilary Asega reports.
William Ruto will now be Kenya's 5th president. He garnered over 7 million votes against his closest rival, Raila Odinga, who got 6.9 million votes. William Ruto has been the deputy president for 9 years. In his acceptance speech, the president-elect has called on Kenyans to unite and focus on development. He says, despite the hurdles faced along the electoral process, he will run a transparent and democratic government. International observers have also applauded the electoral process of Kenya, saying it was free and fair.
The United Nations says 6.6 million people in Afghanistan are food insecure and humanitarian aid appeals remain massively underfunded. It comes a year after the Taliban returned to power in Kabul. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from UNHQ in New York.
The humanitarian coordinator for Afghanistan, Ramiz Alakbarov, says the UN has managed to maintain an unprecedented aid lifeline in the country, reaching 22.9 million people with at least one form of assistance. But he said widespread famine continues to devastate the region, alongside an economic collapse, which has increased the price of food by nearly 30% in the last year. The UN says it's been able to work alongside the Taliban, who have provided consistent security and access for aid workers across the country. But Mr. Alakbarov said $2.6 billion is still needed to fully fund aid operations.
The US has hit back at Iran after it said author Salman Rushdie was worthy of blame following his attack in New York. Rushdie was stabbed multiple times at a literary event last week and is recovering in hospital. The Chinese government says it's conducted more military drills near the island of Taiwan. The move comes in response to another US congressional delegation's visit to the island, which China claims as part of its territory. FSN's Iris Spitzer has more.
The U.S. congressional delegation's visit to Taiwan, which wasn't announced in advance, comes on the heels of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to the island earlier this month and prompted strong criticism and more military exercises from Beijing, which regards the visits as a provocation and considers the island part of its territory. Taiwan has its own government and unofficial diplomatic relationships with other countries such as the U.S. The 5 U.S. lawmakers met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, who said that Taiwan is determined to maintain the status quo amid concerns about Chinese aggression.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. By the way, people wondering what happened to Nobody. He was not feeling well, so he decided to call it an early night. So it's just Ari and I here for the remainder of the evening. And, of course, we'll take your phone calls, 603-283-6160. We've been talking about the situation with Tornado Cash that just is getting uglier because, well, understandably, people are afraid of the federal government gang. They are afraid of the violence that this goon squad will bring down upon their lives, and many of them are running for cover. They're trying to do everything they can, even on so-called decentralized finance sites, which have for the last few years been the sort of the darlings of the cryptocurrency industry. They've been heralded as the next step in finance. We're going to decentralize finance. We're going to take it away from the banks. We're going to take it away from the loan sharks. And
in theory, right?
And it was looking good for a while there. It was looking like a cool concept. The idea being that you could just go to this website. You could lay down some collateral, because you can't get uncollateralized Bitcoin loans. They're not that stupid. But you lay down some collateral. So let's say you've got Bitcoin. You have to, in most cases, what they call wrap it first, which is also a risky activity, meaning that you have to send the Bitcoin to a trusted third party, and then they send you tokens back on the Ethereum blockchain that are called wrapped Bitcoin.
Oh, that's what wrapped Bitcoin was.
You didn't know what that was?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'll deal with actual Bitcoin. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's not real Bitcoin. It's just an
Right.
Ethereum token that represents a Bitcoin. It trades at the price of Bitcoin. But of course, if the centralized repertoire or whatever, the centralized issuer of these tokens gets raided or something, if they get taken down by a hacker, then all of a sudden their wrapped Bitcoin is going to go to zero real fast. So that's one of the big risks involved in wrapping things. But let's just put that aside for a moment. You wrap some Bitcoin, you put it into one of these platforms like Aave or whatever the other ones are, and then they will give you whatever else you want on that platform as a loan at a certain rate, a certain APR that you have to pay back. And then you do whatever you want to do with that other thing. So you haven't actually traded Bitcoin for that other thing. You've just simply put it in as collateral, and you've received a loan back. Usually a fraction. You can get to choose what fraction. So if you put in a whole Bitcoin, you might get, a fifth of a Bitcoin's worth of the other thing that you want. It's an interesting thing, and it's very, very popular. There are many, many billions of dollars in value, what they call locked into these systems.
And as I understand it, if the value of Bitcoin plummets enough, like if it drops by half or 50% or whatever, then they automatically sell off the Bitcoin to liquidate the debt.
Correct. Yep. And that has happened to people.
And that's why a lot of people were flipping out recently when it got down to $20,000 or whatever it was at.
Because there were a lot of liquidations going on.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's an interesting concept. And the idea is you don't have to apply. Right, because if you go down to the bank, you got to give them ID. You got to put down where you work, and you got to show a history of pay stubs, and there's all kinds of info that they want from you.
Got to deal with the centralized credit rating agencies.
Right. In the case of DeFi or decentralized finance, they don't even know who you are.
Because they don't care.
Because it doesn't matter. Because you're collateralizing the loan, and you're just this anonymous entity, basically. So, from a conceptual standpoint, it's an interesting concept. From an execution standpoint, we're not quite there yet as far as decentralized is concerned.
I don't know, man. My gut tells me that it seems like a way to help rich people get richer while not really doing anything for anyone else.
It is a way for people who have any amount of cryptocurrency to make an APR on that.
Okay, fair. Yeah, they don't necessarily have to be wealthy.
I mean, obviously with the Ethereum blockchain, not too long ago it was $10 just to use one transaction on the blockchain. So it was,
yeah, but even further back ago, you could get an entire Ethereum for like $120.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it would have been silly. If you only had $10 worth of Ethereum, then yeah, you pretty much would be priced out of putting it onto these things. But if you got a few $100, then you could do something with that. But again, it's not decentralized enough, as we're finding out here in this story from CryptoSlate.com, where they're reporting on. You can't call them companies; they're just these decentralized projects called Aave and Uniswap. And
they're centralized enough to make decisions about what to allow and what not to allow on their platforms.
Right, and there are people who hold tokens. So usually what happens is with these decentralized autonomous organizations, the way they organize themselves is that they have a token. So like the Uniswap platform has a token. The Aave platform, I think, has their own token. And so the people that want to have a say in how these systems are run, they acquire those tokens. They pay for them. And then they hold them, and then they usually get some sort of voting rights on making a decision.
That is how Dash worked, right?
Yes, Dash was the first successful decentralized autonomous organization. Dash still works that way, in that the masternodes are the ones that have the say over how the network proceeds and what it spends its money on and that sort of thing. So in this case, it appears that whoever it is that is in control of these so-called decentralized platforms has decided to shut down access from the Tornado Cache, not just the sanctioned addresses that the U.S. government issued a list of, but apparently they're also restricting anyone who has interacted with Tornado Cache are now being considered as sanctioned by a company called TRM Labs that offers quote-unquote compliance services to these so-called decentralized apps. And any decentralized app that is using a compliance services company is not decentralized enough.
No, you're right, because if they were decentralized enough, they wouldn't need to comply. They would be beyond the reach of the federal government.
Right.
There would be no one for the federal government to raid or to kick in their door or to arrest.
They would, but that's the problem with a lot of these, is they are not anonymously created. The people who've made these systems are proud of what they've done, and they put their names on them, and so they're
Which is understandable.
Yeah, they're afraid. And really this begs the question, and you touched on this earlier, Arya, it's not hard for an individual or somebody with a script could do this hundreds of times to make a new Ethereum address, take the money that they take out of Tornado Cache, send it to that new address, and then send it to 5 more new addresses.
Isn't that essentially Tornado Cache, though?
No. Tornado Cache mixes your Ethereum with other people's Ethereum, and so you wouldn't get out the same Ethereum that you put into it.
You're just creating a lot of hops.
Yeah, it adds hops. Okay. So the question is, how many hops before the bad Ethereum coming out of Tornado Cache becomes usable again? Because if it's unlimited numbers of hops, then this essentially becomes untouchable Ethereum, and then it's not useful to anybody anymore, and that's a scary concept. Because
has TMR answered that question?
I don't know. It's not clear how far they're considering it to be sanctioned outside of that. But that's an important question, because there's supposedly some number of billions of dollars, like $7 or $8 billion worth of Ethereum, that have passed through this mixer. Well, normally, I would presume after somebody mixes some Ethereum, they might go and spend it on something and put it into one of these platforms or buy something on the internet with it or whatever. And so that money gets moved around. Somebody pointed out that like 90% of Ethereum is no more than 2 hops away from somebody who's had a tornado, who's got Tornado Cache interactions.
And then you're just punishing someone who sold some cryptocurrency, or who sold an actual real physical product for cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's scary.
Dangerous precedents.
So a little bit more here from this story. So we mentioned the other night that somebody, unknown person, has been sending Ethereum from Tornado Cache, because it's still operating. It's just a smart contract. As I understand it, it cannot be shut down. Unlike some of these so-called decentralized platforms that are changing how their systems run.
Leave it to the government to target something that cannot be shut down.
So somebody out there on the internet is taking their Ethereum, sending it through Tornado Cache, and making it come out on the other side into popular people's wallets. People who have public identities, like the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, Justin Sun, who's the programmer behind Tron and other cryptocurrencies. He announced recently that he's now blocked from going on to the Aave website because somebody sent him 1/10 of an Ethereum from Tornado Cache into his public Ethereum wallet.
Nice. So that's good activism there, man.
Somebody's stirring it up. There's more coming up.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, you've got Ian.
And Arya.
We're talking about the sort of the interesting things that have been happening, the really sad things that have been happening in the wake of the Tornado Cash decision by the U.S. federal government goons to add Tornado Cash, which is an Ethereum mixer, to the list of sanctions.
You know, I want to say kudos to this activist who we were just talking about. And I'm going to characterize this person as an activist. I don't know if they are or not, but they've been sending Ethereum through the Tornado Cash network, or through the mix or whatever, and then sending like a tenth of Ethereum to various popular addresses like the CEO of Coinbase and people like that. You know, that
to exchanges apparently as well, not government, but the public exchanges.
That way, all of those Ethereum wallets that receive Ethereum from him also end up banned by this company as a result of this Treasury ruling and all of that. So he answered the question for us. We've been opining, who is going to be able to, speak up and do something about this? Well, this activist here solved the problem. The CEO of Coinbase will raise this issue with Congress and the Treasury. And if they won't, then Coinbase will, Kraken will, Binance will, all of these exchanges that are going to be affected by this, they're going to be upset. And they're going to bring it to them like, hey, guys, you can't do this. You implemented this in a bad way. Regrettably, Coinbase and all of these others that want to play ball with the government, like, why don't you implement it this other way that we've come up with that will benefit us a little bit more? But, I mean, they will.
Maybe they will. You might be right about that.
I think they'll have to, right? If Brian Armstrong can never use his Ethereum again because someone sent him a tenth of an Ethereum or whatever.
But that's the thing. The crypto industry doesn't have sway in Congress. They got like one lady who's a senator who's into crypto. She's from Wyoming. Cynthia Lummis, I think is her name. So she's sort of like the active senator who's trying to put legislation forward to quote-unquote help the industry, and I'm skeptical of that at best. But
I don't blame you.
But they're not lobbying, like Microsoft.
Didn't Coinbase try that, though?
Coinbase did try to go and curry favor with these people, and it didn't seem to go very well for them.
That's true. They did get threatened by the SEC right after that because they wanted to start their loan platform, and the SEC was like, hey, if you do this, we're going to sue you.
That's right. Yeah, and they wouldn't even talk to them.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So,
and then, of course, the SEC is going after Library.
They are, and others, not just Library, Ripple, and several others that I'd never heard of before. So this is bad, and maybe you're right, Aria. Maybe this will encourage these centralized exchanges to try to change this situation, but I'm not optimistic that that's going to happen.
They're not going to allow any situation, any solution, quote solution, to this problem to exist if that solution can also inadvertently result in the CEO of Coinbase having his Ethereum address permanently flagged. The situation is just going to be intolerable to them, and they're going to have to work out a different solution. And right now, it all hinges on this AMR, or whatever the name of the company was, the compliance company.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who are writing the software determining
they might get them to change how they do it.
And that's a much easier hurdle for them to leap
than the
over.
whole federal government or the Treasury Department. Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case.
And that's one of the problems with centralization. Right back to the problems with centralization. If all of these, quote, decentralized exchanges are getting their compliance software from this one company, then this one company controls all the decentralized exchanges.
I want to give a shout out to the people over at ThorChain, which sent this out today via their official Twitter. ThorChain is the supposed gold standard in decentralized exchanges. It's a very interesting experiment that I've been watching closely because, unfortunately, I'm not like you, Aria, under bail conditions. You and I are not allowed to use cryptocurrency, but that doesn't mean I can't learn about it.
ThorChain basically found a way to take Shapeshift and make it decentralized, right? Whereas
Shapeshift took ThorChain, is using ThorChain chain technology to to exchange between.
But I mean, the essence of what ThorChain is doing, it's like Shapeshift, what they were doing, but now it's decentralized. Like you had decentralized exchanges that could only do Ethereum tokens way back in the day.
This is allowing people to exchange what they call level 1 cryptos. So Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, I think Binance Coin.
Monero?
They added Doge. There's plans to do Monero.
That'll be good.
And that's obviously something that's stirring up controversy right now because they're worried. Some people are worried about, what's going to happen to ThorChain? Well, here's what they said today on their official Twitter, which I follow. Message to all DeFi protocol developers. If you think you're in a vulnerable position, and I don't know what WRT stands for. It's some sort of
with regard to.
Oh, thank you. With regard to your users, then conduct a planned obsolescence, hand over everything to your community, and leave. Adding block lists turns your DeFi app into a centralized finance app and increases your liability.
Nice.
So they are not going to be doing that. They cannot, from what I understand.
It sounds like they're getting ready to hand the keys to the community.
Because ThorChain is a protocol, and they have no way of blocking anything like. There's no block list on ThorChain. So that's awesome, and I hope that they continue that particular ethos into the future because that's what we need. Yep. We need systems that are untouchable by the state because if all of these developers on these other so-called DeFi platforms crumble under the potential for what might happen in the future, because the federal government is scary and they will start putting people in prison in order to send a message out there that you can't mess with them. Don't you dare try to create some sort of alternative finance system to our anointed ones. If there aren't enough people who are willing to, just flip those goons off and say, we'll do what we want, screw you. A lot of these people aren't even based in the United States. But yet they're still, they're so worried about what's going to happen.
Well, why shouldn't they be? The creator of Tornado Cash was recently arrested in the Netherlands,
That's
or
true.
one of the programmers for Tornado Cash in the Netherlands.
Yeah, this is an international attack against cryptocurrency. I get it. But I got to agree with Thorchain here. If you've got your name on something and it's making you nervous, then just walk away from that project.
Yep, take your name off it.
Yeah. But that's not what we're seeing happening. Instead, they're cracking down. Tornado Cash, somebody spoke from the Tornado Cash team to CryptoSlate.com, and they were given anonymity for their own protection. Will be referred to as TC member for the sake of this story. The Tornado Cash contributor told CryptoSlate's Akiba that, quote, multisigs shut down the decentralized autonomous organization. We're all out. Better safe than sorry, unless it all calms down a bit, unquote. So what happened was they apparently shut down their entire decentralized autonomous organization. Again, Tornado Cash is continuing to operate.
Well, they can't stop it.
But the decentralized autonomous organization that was associated with it is now done.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tornado Cash is decentralized and open source, right?
That's my understanding.
So it doesn't need a DAO in the first place, right?
My understanding is the DAO could not change the
Then
system.
what the hell was the point of the existence of the decentralized autonomous organization, except to allow these people to feel good about themselves?
Having not been involved, I can't say for sure. Maybe they could have submitted code changes or something like that. I don't know. But the member declared, quote, there goes decentralization, unquote, in what they described as a, quote, SE situation, which I'm censoring for radio. Following the closing of the Tornado Cash DAO, quote, DAO funds have been returned to governance contracts, multisig deleted. That means their multi-signature wallet was closed out. Now, what that was for, I don't know, but they had one, and now it's gone. The removal of the DAO multisig indicates this may be the end for Tornado Cash, the member confirmed. While clarifying that's only their opinion, the member reaffirmed that, quote, multisigs shut down the DAO, Tornado Cash can't fight the United States, unquote.
Well, then don't put yourself in a position to, you morons.
He said
nobody... And it sounds like you didn't. It sounds like Tornado Cash, again, there I go with saying Thunder. Tornado Cash set itself up to operate independently of the decentralized autonomous organization.
I hope so.
To just sit there on the blockchain doing whatever it is that it does.
He asserted that, quote, nobody did anything wrong. The world is effed up. The person confirmed that the DAO was shut down, quote, to keep members safe and avoid legal issues, unquote, as the situation is, quote, dangerous for all devs, unquote, even those outside of the Tornado Cash ecosystem. They also confirmed that they believe a co-founder of Tornado Cash, a different one than the one that was arrested, this one's name is Roman Storm, is looking for attorneys in the Netherlands as of a few days ago, which they presume must be for Aleski Pertsev, who was the man that was arrested. The general mood of the member was despondent as they admitted they needed a vacation after the troubling week. The future of Tornado Cash looks gloomy as its Torn token is down 20% on the day. So apparently there is a token involved in this, and the role of Torn governance token is currently as known due to the DAO being closed. I think there's something missing there. I think it's unknown. I think they mean the role of that token is now unknown since the DAO is being shut down. Because normally, again, these tokens are used to administer the decentralized autonomous organization, to give people voting power within it. So it's a developing situation. On the way, we're going to get into the trash cans. $20,000 trash cans in San Francisco. What is going on out there? It is insane, and Aria's got that story coming up. Hour number 3 is on the way, and you can join us here. 603-283-6160. Weigh in on privacy coins if you want as well. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. William Ruto has been named as the next president of Kenya. However, the announcement has come with allegations of vote rigging and some violence. He was announced president by the Kenyan Electoral Commission after 6 days of vote counting. Ruto beat his closest competitor, Raila Odinga, as FSN's Hilary Asega reports.
William Ruto will now be Kenya's 5th president. He garnered over 7 million votes against his closest rival, Raila Odinga, who got 6.9 million votes. William Ruto has been the deputy president for 9 years. In his acceptance speech, the president-elect has called on Kenyans to unite and focus on development. He says, despite the hurdles faced along the electoral process, he will run a transparent and democratic government. International observers have also applauded the electoral process of Kenya, saying it was free and fair.
The United Nations says 6.6 million people in Afghanistan are food insecure and humanitarian aid appeals remain massively underfunded. It comes a year after the Taliban returned to power in Kabul. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from UNHQ in New York.
The humanitarian coordinator for Afghanistan, Ramiz Alakbarov, says the UN has managed to maintain an unprecedented aid lifeline in the country, reaching 22.9 million people with at least one form of assistance. But he said widespread famine continues to devastate the region, alongside an economic collapse, which has increased the price of food by nearly 30% in the last year. The UN says it's been able to work alongside the Taliban, who have provided consistent security and access for aid workers across the country. But Mr. Alakbarov said $2.6 billion is still needed to fully fund aid operations.
The US has hit back at Iran after it said author Salman Rushdie was worthy of blame following his attack in New York. Rushdie was stabbed multiple times at a literary event last week and is recovering in hospital. The Chinese government says it's conducted more military drills near the island of Taiwan. The move comes in response to another US congressional delegation's visit to the island, which China claims as part of its territory. FSN's Iris Spitzer has more.
The U.S. congressional delegation's visit to Taiwan, which wasn't announced in advance, comes on the heels of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to the island earlier this month and prompted strong criticism and more military exercises from Beijing, which regards the visits as a provocation and considers the island part of its territory. Taiwan has its own government and unofficial diplomatic relationships with other countries such as the U.S. The 5 U.S. lawmakers met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, who said that Taiwan is determined to maintain the status quo amid concerns about Chinese aggression.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on Friday's violent assault on satanic verses novelist Salman Rushdie. He's faced an Iranian fatwa threatening his life since the book was published in 1989. He was stabbed nearly 10 times as he was about to address a literary conference in New York, where he was due to tell the audience that America offered safe haven for writers. That turned out not to be the case. Brendan O'Neill is the chief political writer at Spiked.
Very shocking, but at the same time, not particularly surprising, because we know that he's had this bounty hanging over his head for 33 years, courtesy of the Iranian regime. I think it really demonstrates, I think it was a violent form of cancel culture. I think it was, I mean, we do need to wait for more details. It does look like the suspect was a fan of Iran and possibly a fan of Hezbollah as well. So there does seem to be a link between the fatwa and what happened to Salman Rushdie, but we do need more details. But from my first impression, it seems to me to be an incredibly violent form of censorship designed to punish a man whose only crime was to write a novel, and that should be intolerable for anyone who believes in freedom and civilization.
And he says it is the West's pressing duty now to consider whether it has offered enough public defence of Salman Rushdie's freedom of expression. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, William Ruto has been named as the next president of Kenya. However, the announcement has come with allegations of vote rigging and some violence. The United Nations says a year after the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, 6.6 million people are food insecure and humanitarian aid appeals remain massively underfunded. And the US has hit back at Iran after it said that author Salman Rushdie was worthy of blame following his attack in New York. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
After this morning's police raid on Cosmopolitan magazine's male pleasure laboratory revealed that test subjects were forced to endure horrific abuses and inhumane living conditions, Onion reporters spoke to 23-year-old Daniel Chertok, one of the numerous men exploited for the monthly magazine's studies on erotic stimulation.
It was awful. They drove us wild for days on end. Once they made me lather myself with gallons of sexy bath oils, and then read thousands of racy text messages until my eyesight began to blur. Then for the next 12 hours, they blasted sultry songs into my ears and made me simulate 50 crazy hot sex moves. They said I couldn't rest until they found the bliss button on my Randy regions.
According to Chertok, test subjects were often subjected to hours of grueling experimentation at the hands of female scientists. Chertok added that many of his fellow subjects were not lucky enough to survive the excruciating treatment.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the show, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
And Arya.
Whether you want to comment on the attack on cryptocurrency, specifically on privacy coins, which hasn't started officially yet, but they went after Tornado Cash, which is a privacy technology. So if they can go after a decentralized set of code that's running on the Ethereum blockchain, there's no reason why they can't just sanction Monero while they're at it, or Zcash, or Hush, or any of the other ones.
Well, why can't they go after the creator of Ethereum, Eric Voorhees, I believe?
No, that's the Shapeshift creator.
Yeah, that's
You're
right.
Thinking
Eric
of,
something is the other guy.
No.
Is it not?
Now that you've said the wrong name, the real name isn't coming to me.
Okay, I thought it was Eric something. But anyway, why can't they go after the creator of Ethereum?
Who, by the way, has used Tornado Cash.
Well, Ethereum's running Tornado Cash. So by definition, the guy who created Ethereum
If you're going to go after a programmer, why not go after the top dog, right?
And,
Vitalik is his name, Vitalik Buterin.
And if you're going to do that, why not go after all of the Ethereum miners out there who are facilitating these transactions by confirming the transactions on the blockchain?
They may have considered those things, and they could certainly do that. Let's go to the phones, though. You can bring up what you want. We're going to get into the $20,000 trash cans coming up here in San Francisco. But we're not going to get into the trash cans, but that's the problem with them. You can't get into them. We'll learn more about it. But we've got Sarah on the line in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, the trash can thing does sound interesting. It's just kind of interesting, but
Oh, you'll love it, Sarah.
Well, if you actually listen to the show, then you might learn about it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just want to bring up. Well, it sounds interesting, but I just want to bring up that we have a shortage of elementary school crossing guards this year.
Really?
Who has a shortage?
Albuquerque?
Okay, so
Yeah,
Sarah
well,
doesn't have a shortage.
She said we.
Well, the thing is that we want to, get the crossing guards to protect the children where they're crossing the street.
Are you going to do this, Sarah?
That was going to be my question for her. It's like, Sarah, why don't you sign up? They're hiring. It sounds like they're desperate. They'll take you.
No, I got my reasons, but the thing is that.
What are your reasons? Why don't you care about protecting the children?
Yeah, but I'm not going to get hit by a car.
Oh, I see.
She's going to let the children get it instead.
Well, after they hit me, after that.
It's hard to really take you seriously, Sarah, if on one hand you say, we want to protect the children, but you yourself are not willing to lift a finger to actually go and do that.
Well, we need to put more speeding cameras. We need red light cameras. That's what we need to do.
That's not going to stop people from running over children at crosswalks.
Well, they're afraid they have to pay $100 ticket, or it's gonna go into the collection agency.
How much is the ticket?
$100, but
how many kids do I get to run over for a $100 ticket?
But look, if you run over, hit the crosswalk, and then the kid afterwards, you don't pay nothing.
Oh, even better. Free of charge.
That's the whole point. Yeah, they're just gonna be like, well, that was an accident. Well, and then just like, well, you didn't mean to do it. But if you run a red light, if you speed, you get a ticket, and that hurts them more in their wallet. But if you actually hit a person, there's no consequences because they have to prove malicious intent, like running over your husband 10 times and saying that he was a speed bump.
So are you asserting here on national radio that if I ever feel like running a red light, then my best interest is to find a kid to run over because that's going to bring the least repercussions to me?
They just run over a crosswalk and a kid behind it and say that you were just texting on the phone. I couldn't stop in time, and somebody hit me from the back.
You actually think that'll work?
Here in New Mexico.
I think you live in a crazy fantasy world, Sarah.
Well, this is the best. How much do cross guards get paid? They're
more than you do.
Well, they're probably getting maybe $20 an hour. But you get a negligent driver, you get your legs broken, and then the kid gets hit, and then that's the end of it.
You know
that $20 an hour.
As a crossing guard, you have a bright uniform with neon colors, and you get your own little stop sign. I mean, I would think it would give you a feeling of power, Sarah, to be able to just wave a stop sign and make people stop.
Well, here in New Mexico, they don't stop. They just keep on going.
Oh, where are the stories about crossing guards being hit by cars in Albuquerque?
Funny you mentioned that. That's exactly what I'm looking at right now is, how often are crossing guards killed by drivers?
It must happen. It must have happened somewhere, given the amount of time that crossing guards spend.
I've got a story from 2022 and a story from 2016.
Where's the 2022 one? Are you looking specifically for New Mexico, or are you looking nationwide?
Just nationwide.
Yeah.
Right. This was in Maryland.
Yeah. I mean, it must happen.
Yeah, but it can't be that common, right?
It can't be.
When you're coming to a school zone that you're coming to a school zone. There's signs everywhere. There's already people not speeding.
There's the lights that tell you have to slow down to 20 miles an hour.
Yeah. There's usually a bunch of people walking around, and then there's the person there in the big orange or big yellow vest with the stop sign.
Just think about it, Sarah. If you saw somebody, think about the power that you could have. If you saw somebody speeding through a school zone, you could call the police on that person, and then they would get even worse than a ticket. They'd probably get a really big ticket or maybe even some sort of criminal charge. I mean, you could be the person doing that. This is a great job for a busybody like yourself, and you could get paid, but you're too much of a coward, is what it sounds like. Are you chicken, Sarah?
Supposed to do it. I don't want to do it either.
Would you describe yourself as a chicken?
No, I think the robots and the computer automated cameras could do just as good of a job.
So you're not a chicken. You just don't want to, put anything at risk, is what you're
How
saying.
much money would it be worth it to you to get you out there as a crossing guard, Sarah? What would we have to pay you per hour?
Well, the thing is, I'm more into like legislatures. I'm more, talk to the representatives.
No amount, Aria. You couldn't give her $1 million an hour, and she wouldn't do it.
Is that true, Sarah?
No, I'm too scared of cars. They don't stop.
Well, I mean, what good's $1 million if you're dead, right?
Yeah. What good is $20 per hour?
No. $1 million per hour, Sarah. If I was to offer you $1 million per hour to get out there and be a crosswalk guard, would you do it?
Well, it's never going to happen. So that's not
Doesn't
even
sound
offer.
like it.
You know what I mean?
Sarah likes the world where she doesn't have to work.
Clearly, she prefers calling legislatures.
Yeah, she likes calling talk shows. She likes calling bureaucrats and
That's
politicians.
not a job, Sarah.
And she wants to put all the other old ladies in the line of fire out there.
Hey, but I'm calling you guys at work because we're going to get 12 speeding cameras back here, and
All
people
right, that's
want
enough
them
out of
back.
you tonight, Sarah. Thank you for the call.
Calling us did not help with that, Sarah. I don't know how to tell you.
She always gives us credit for everything that happens in Albuquerque, and I don't even know if we're on the air there right now. I think we have a station maybe on weekends. I think Kiva might be running us there, but honestly, I don't know.
Well, David used to fill us in on all of the drama going on with the radio station there. One of them at least used to carry us.
We've been on actually 2 different stations in Albuquerque over the years.
But still, I mean, calling Free Talk Live is not what got, the city of Albuquerque more red light cameras or whatever. And you are not persuasive enough, Sarah, to be I know you think you are. But you're not the person to be out there convincing legislatures or city councilors or whatever of anything. If they do what you suggest, it's only going to be because they were already going to do it anyway. Because you're offering, more control, more red light cameras, more police, and all these other things that they love. You're not persuading anyone.
If you want to join the show, the number here is 603-283-6160. Coming up, there's more insane news out of San Francisco. It is, it's the city where it's known for poop being on the streets, where it's known for people just waltzing into convenience stores and stores like CVS and just stealing stuff in broad daylight in front of other customers and store staff, just insane levels of theft. Businesses that shut down during COVID never came back. It is just an absolute S show over there, and they've decided they are going to focus on where it really matters, which is locking trash cans, apparently, so that homeless people can't scavenge stuff out of them. That's, I think, the story we're going to get into, and they've spent a lot of money developing these cans. We'll get into that coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. The number for you is 603-283-6160. Bring up anything you want. And take control of the airwaves here on Free Talk Live. That's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live is brought to you by bullionmax.com/FTL. By the way, that's where you go to get your silver starter kit at employee pricing. Bullion Max is a direct-to-consumer precious metals retailer that can help you diversify into gold and silver. It's security for your family in times of crisis. You can buy directly from bullionmax.com. And you don't have to talk to a salesperson. Your precious metals ship fully insured directly to your home. It's fast, it's easy, and you can get that silver starter kit by going to bullionmax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products, including a 2022 Silver American Eagle, Buffalo Round, and a Buffalo Silver Bar, and more.
That all does sound really tempting.
They're gorgeous-looking pieces. I remember having some of the Buffalo pieces before the federal government came and stole them.
bullionmax.com/FTL?
That's right.
I'm going to have to look into this later.
Only one per household, though, so keep that in mind. Go to bullionmax.com/FTL, and you get employee pricing on that silver starter kit. Dean and Aria here tonight. Phones are open. Aria, what is going on in San Francisco now?
Well, when you see a headline that says, what takes years and costs $20,000, a San Francisco trash can, if you're a libertarian, you can't help but click that headline. Because I remember John Stossel did this special a number of years ago about some New York City bathrooms at some park or something like that. And
and the $1 million or whatever that they spent to renovate them?
There was a private one and there was a public one. And he just sort of compared the two. And the public one, the one built by the city, cost millions upon millions of dollars. And it looked absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then the private one was a beautiful building, and it was done
a fraction of the cost. Yeah.
So,
and it was probably donated by generous people.
I don't remember the details, but what takes 4 years to make and costs more than $20,000 a trash can in San Francisco? That costly bin is among 6 trash cans, 6, as in 5 plus 1 trash cans hitting San Francisco. So they spent 4 years and millions of dollars, presumably, designing 6 trash cans. Hitting San Francisco streets this summer in the city's long saga in search of the perfect trash can. Overflowing trash cans are a common sight in the Northern California city. Keep in mind that they could have used this money to instead hire more people to empty out those trash cans. That wasn't what they chose to do. Along with piles of used clothes, shoes, furniture, and other items strewn about on sometimes impassable sidewalks. Now, I've heard from like Star Child that this isn't true. That these rumors we're hearing about San Francisco, poop in the sidewalks and sidewalks being filled with furniture and shoes and clothes. All of that's just San Francisco mongering. I don't know what the word would be, but I hear it all the time.
Yeah, I just talked to somebody. It was at a gathering of Free Stater types a couple weeks ago, who I've met before. He's, it wasn't the first time I'd met this person, and he's originally from San Francisco, and he goes back, once a decade to visit family or friends or whatever. And he had said he'd recently gone back and that it is worse than it has ever been. He says they actually hire people to go around, like if you've got an apartment building or something like that. Like sometimes apartment buildings in New York City will have like a doorman. Well, in San Francisco, they got a guy that actually walks the perimeter to make sure that there's no poop that's been around like the building, and picks it up if
human
necessary.
Poop.
Yeah,
like this isn't people not cleaning up behind their pets.
No, this is bums pooping on the streets, basically.
City official hired a Bay Area industrial firm to custom design the pricey trash can, along with 2 other prototypes that cost taxpayers $19,000 and $11,000 each. This summer, residents have the opportunity to evaluate them, along with 3 off-the-shelf options added to the pilot program after officials faced criticism. So they're putting out 6 models of trash cans for the residents.
So there was a $19,000 model.
Yes.
An $11,000 model, and then a handful of off-the-shelf items?
Yeah, it didn't say what the price of those were.
Okay.
Last month, the city deployed 15 custom-made trash cans and 11 off-the-shelf trash cans, each of those costing from $630 to $2,800. What the hell are these people doing that requires a $600 trash can?
I don't know.
With QR codes affixed to them.
Does it show an image of this thing?
Not that I've seen yet, but possibly. And these trash cans also included QR codes, asking residents to fill out a survey about them. City officials said they intend to pay no more than $3,000 per trash can. I will custom make them trash cans for $3,000 per. Are you kidding? San Francisco began a search for the perfect trash can in 2018 when officials decided it was time to...
Oh, my God.
4 years later, yeah. When officials decided it was time to replace the 3,000 public bins that had been on the streets for almost 20 years. Officials say...
Oh, okay. So this isn't supposed to be out in front of somebody's house. This is
no, these are the ones that are scattered throughout the streets. Yeah,
I see. Okay.
Officials say the current bins have too big a hole that allows for easy rummaging. That's the officials' primary complaint.
Why does anyone care about that? Is it because it's annoying to try to walk up to a trash can if there's somebody rummaging in it because you can't throw something away?
Can you
Otherwise,
imagine?
Why would you care if somebody gets something out of the trash that they think shouldn't go there?
Can you just imagine how hateful and evil and petty you have to be to see someone digging through the trash can and be like, that person shouldn't be allowed to do that?
They might be able to eat somebody's uneaten hamburger.
I watched a video today that one of the trolls shared in our Matrix chat that I just like this troll, I ended up watching the entire thing. You can find it at matrix.freetalk or chat.freetalklive.com. It was just this guy who went off the highway into this little wooded area that was just, a few hundred feet off the highway. He set up a campsite there. He just stayed there for 24 hours. And I'm watching and I was like, what the hell is the big deal? Who cares about this guy? And
how far off the highway was he?
Just a few hundred feet.
Okay.
In the woods.
Just in the woods.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was watching for construction workers and police and all this stuff to come over that. What the hell has happened in American society, in just Western society or the world in general, where you're committing a crime by not having a place to live. It's just insane that we've reached this point, that this person trying to go out into the woods and throw out a tent on this property. This isn't private property. No one lives here. No one's using it. But this guy just goes out there and throws out a tent. He's somehow breaking the law and has to watch out for police. It's that same reason that allows us officials of San Francisco to be like, we can't have people rummaging through our trash cans. They didn't pay for that. It's a half-eaten bologna sandwich, dude. Chill.
Who cares?
I can't imagine these people. These people need Jesus, man. I don't know what can reach the heart of someone who's that evil. Yes. Yeah. Well, just anyone who sees someone camping, homeless, off in the woods or whatever on public property, or sees someone rummaging through a trash can, and their heart isn't filled with pity; it's filled with malice when they look on it. I don't know how someone gets like that. The bins also, now, actual criticisms. The bins also have hinges that need constant repair, and locks that are easy to breach.
These are the current ones.
Yes. Well, why do they have locks in the first place? If someone wants to steal your garbage, let them.
I guess maybe it would be a problem if... So they talk about overflowing, right? So if you've got an overflowing trash can and somebody just pulls out the overflowing trash can and then they just dump it everywhere, I could see that is a problem, right? Making a huge mess just because they might get a French fry out of it or something like that. There's more coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. And in a place like San Francisco, where you've got people who are so strung out that they're literally crapping on the streets, you better believe they're not going to be concerned about putting the other trash back. More coming up. As inflation surpasses another 40-year high, the U.S. dollar continues to weaken. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver, and you can also own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. BullionMax.com is a direct-to-consumer precious metals retailer who can help you diversify into gold and silver. It's security for your family in times of crisis. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals ship fully insured directly to your home. It's fast and easy. Free Talk Live has a special offer to get you started. Get BullionMax.com Silver Starter Kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. This kit includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products, including a 2022 Silver American Eagle, a Buffalo Round, and a Buffalo Silver Bar. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The U.S. Justice Department is opposing requests by several media outlets to release the affidavit that led to the search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence earlier this month. During the search, FBI agents took more than 20 boxes of documents, including several which contained classified information. The affidavit would likely shed more light on why the department took the unusual step of ordering the search of a former president's home for evidence. In its 13-page response, the Justice Department argues that releasing the affidavit would reveal ongoing and future investigative efforts and undermine agents' ability to collect evidence or obtain truthful testimony. A judge must now decide whether the affidavit should remain sealed. Russia is letting foreign investors sell bonds and collect payments for the first time since it invaded Ukraine. The central bank banned foreign buyers from selling assets to prevent investors dumping their assets all at once as Russian sovereign bonds became incredibly risky to hold. But the loosening of restrictions only applies to those from non-hostile countries. FSN's Stuart Smith reports from Moscow.
The number of so-called unfriendly countries now sits at 56, a quarter of the world, including giant economies like those of the US, Japan and the European Union, but also smaller ones like Micronesia and the Bahamas. People from there will have to hold on to their Russian bonds for the foreseeable future. But last year, 90% of foreign investment was held by citizens of these so-called hostile countries, so the change will free only $2 billion out of 20. However, a loosening of US Treasury restrictions implemented at the end of last month does allow a way out for some investors through certain banks.
The Chinese government says it has resumed military drills near Taiwan. The move comes as a U.S. congressional delegation visited the island, which China claims as part of its territory. In other news, it was a good start to the trading week on Wall Street as investors await earnings reports from some major retailers. But China's decision to cut interest rates has sparked concerns over the health of the country's economy. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Responding to a slowdown in economic activity, due in part to COVID lockdowns and weakness in the property market, China's central bank has cut interest rates. While concerns over the health of China's economy linger, the major US indexes closed the day up in positive territory. The Dow Jones closed up 0.5%, the S&P ticked up 0.4%, and the Nasdaq 0.6%. Traders in the US are eagerly awaiting the release of earnings reports this week from major companies including Target, Walmart and Home Depot. All eyes will be on how inflation has impacted the bottom lines of these big box retailers.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Bring up whatever you want. 603-283-6160. We're talking about the boondoggle of the government trash can that's happening in San Francisco, and apparently they've been doing this since 2018. The story you're sharing tonight is fresh from the AP News on the subject, Ari, and we're going to continue with that. But I do want to thank Roger Paxton, who is a longtime Free Talk Live supporter. He's one of our amps, and you can join Roger. Roger's a gold level. He's doing $10 a month, and you can do it for as little as $5 a month over at amps.freetalklive.com. If you value what we do here on Free Talk Live and you want to help support Free Talk Live, then please go and join Amps. It's our Patreon, and it helps us out, and it helps us get the ideas of liberty into more ears all around the planet. So once again, it's amps.freetalklive.com. So they're spending upwards of $19,000 per trash can, or they're thinking about it. They've had these things
they'll be
developed.
cheaper if mass-produced, but the prototype that they put out on the street, yes, $19,000.
One of them. They also had an $11,000 one, and they're saying they want to spend as much as $3,000 a piece to buy, 3,000 trash cans for the whole city, basically. This isn't for people's homes. This is for those stationary ones that you would see in, the park or along the downtown streets and things like that.
Right. And we have these here in Keene. To my knowledge, they work just fine. I mean, we don't have the homeless problems here in Keene that they have in San Francisco.
Homeless people,
but
though.
not like that. We don't have the ones
like
pooping in the streets and eating trash out of the cans and stuff like that.
No, certainly not.
The homeless population here in Keene can just go into the Cumberland Farms or whatever and ask for a slice of pizza that's old, and they'll probably get it instead of having to rummage through the trash or something. Some people also topple the cans on fire, cover them in graffiti. I mean, I skipped that. They topple them over, cover them in graffiti, or set them on fire.
Okay.
Which you don't want your trash can in the middle of the street burning. That's certainly true.
Mm-hmm.
The city is
they're dealing with a
serious.
different level of homeless. That's for sure.
I mean, I understand why they wouldn't want graffiti on their trash can, but at the same time, it's public property. If a member of the public wants to express themselves artistically on that trash can, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's their trash can as much as it is anyone else's, right? But I understand, you don't want them hobbling it over or setting it on fire. The city is so serious about the endeavor, it has created interactive maps so residents can track and test the different designs, which include the soft square, the priciest prototype at $20,900. The boxy stainless steel receptacle has openings for trash and for can and bottle recycling, and includes a foot pedal. The slim silhouette.
What are you supposed to do with that?
I don't know, man. The foot pedal?
Yeah.
Open it, presumably, so you don't have to touch the dirty trash can.
Oh, I see.
I mean, makes sense. It's all bougie, right?
Yeah.
The slim silhouette, at $18,800 per prototype.
Oh my God!
Is made of stainless steel bars that give would-be graffiti artists less space to tag. If one of the custom design, this is absolutely insane, right? This is what they're doing out in San Francisco. This is what the problems they're trying to solve. If one of the custom design bins is chosen, the cost to mass produce it will be $2,000 to $3,000 per piece. Beth Rubenstein, a spokeswoman for San Francisco's Department of Public Works.
Imagine the profit. Whoever it is that gets this contract, whichever buddy of the city council members, because that's how it's going to happen. It's going to be some sort of nepotistic thing where somebody's brother is going to get the contract to manufacture these things, and it's just going to be some bars of steel, which are not going to cost $2,000 or anywhere near that. It's probably going to be like $20 worth of parts and maybe another $50 worth of labor or something to put it together. It's probably going to be $100 or $200 cost to manufacture these things. They're going to sell them for 10 times or 15 times as much.
So Beth Rubenstein says, we live in a beautiful city, and we want the trash can to be functional and cost-effective, but it needs to be beautiful. I have never in my life looked at a trash can and thought, that's a beautiful trash can. Who's that guy who's that bodybuilder that married the ashtray? We need to get his opinion on this, right? Yeah. You tell me which one of these trash cans is beautiful, and that's the one we'll go with. But the good looks of the shiny new trash cans have not protected them from vandalism and disrespect. 3 weeks after being unveiled, several have already been tagged with orange and white graffiti. Others already show the drip stains of inconsiderate coffee drinkers or have attractive dumping, with people leaving dilapidated bathroom cabinets and plastic bags full of empty wine bottles next to them. Trash on San Francisco city streets has been an issue for decades. It gets into some background here. That's pretty much, actually, good God, the article goes on and on. Noticeably lacking any pictures of these $18,000 trash cans. I don't know what the AP was thinking when they wrote this article. I guess this is one up here at the top. It looks like it looks like a Dalek from Doctor Who, right? It looks like it's about to shout exterminate and start trying to kill people. The rest of them, it includes a large number of pictures that I'm just now finding. I guess they're all right.
Does it show the prototypes? Are these the prototypes?
I think so, yes. I can't tell because I threw an ad in front. It doesn't list what the names are, like the silky silhouette or whatever.
Oh my God.
The soft square trash can, they do have a picture of that one as one of the prototypes. They have a picture of one. It's called the Renaissance trash can. The Renaissance. That's the one they'll end up going with for sure. And it just looks like a trash can. I don't understand why this took $20,000 to build. It's just a trash can.
Here's an excerpt from another article. Again, this has been going on for years. This one's from last year. MissionLocal.org reporting on the San Francisco garbage can situation. One of the city councilors who voted yes for this explained his yes vote by saying this, quote, this was for a $427,500 expenditure to move forward with designing these cans that you're now talking about here.
$500,000. Good Lord.
It was approved by all 11 of the city so-called supervisors. I guess that's their name for city councilors out there. Quote, I can't accept any further delays. This needs to get done. Voting down the expenditure altogether, which is money that had already long been set aside for this purpose, would have set us back possibly for years. The main concern I've had is not only with the cost, it's how bungled and long of a process this has been. So he voted yes.
Because he was tired of it not... Hold on, what?
He's concerned with how long of a bungled the process has been. So he voted yes because he wanted to spend another $400-something thousand in the belief that it would get done sooner rather than later.
But all it's done, so they've got, I don't remember the number of prototypes here that we're dealing with at this point, but it's 6 is the number. Okay, that at most, even if you assume they're all the $20,000 trash cans, and they're not, at most that comes out to about $120,000. Where's the rest of the $450,000 or whatever it was?
Design.
But they
have to pay the designers, the pros.
So it's really just nepotism. It's a way of sending
somebody pocketed serious money.
Some trash can manufacturer in San Francisco made a lot of money by coming up with some increasingly stupid Dalek-looking science fiction designs.
Well, remember, the city of Keene here in Little Keene, New Hampshire, I think spent like tens of thousands, if not like over $100,000, hiring like a consulting firm to look at changes to the dump that would involve like a fish farm or something like that. There was some other boondoggle that
must have been before
here.
I lived here, because it's the first I've heard of that particular one.
Something like that happened here. It happens everywhere. This kind of crap. City councils are doing this stuff all over the place because no one pays any attention. And it's like, well, you can't fight City Hall anyway.
But you can't. City Hall's the one level of government that you sort of can fight. You can't fight the federal government. You can't fight the state government.
We're going to try.
Well, yes, we are. But the average person, I mean, and might have to deal with some losses on that front. But the average person still, they can't change what the federal government is going to do. They can't change what the state government is going to do. But their city council, you can go out there and be a big enough Sarah where, in theory, you could affect some sort of change.
Maybe in Keene, but not in San Francisco.
No, certainly not. No, the only thing you can do in San Francisco is get out.
Get out of there. And immediately your quality of life will go up. I mean, my God.
I haven't stepped on poop since I left San Francisco.
You can't even get a shack in San Francisco for $300,000 as far as housing is concerned. So, you can take whatever money you can get out of your house in San Francisco and live like a king pretty much anywhere else, even in the United States. More coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
If you've never been to a pawn shop, it's probably not what you're expecting. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Think yard sale, where you can be the buyer or the seller. The cash you need today may be something that's gathering dust right now in your garage or attic. Why wait till next Christmas to re-gift stuff that Santa brought last Christmas? Need power tools? Who cares if that second-hand electric drill is scratched up? It looks like you've been working. When you see someone with a Rolex watch, a real one, can you tell whether they bought it new? Are you ready to pop the question? That diamond took millions of years to create. Who cares if someone else owned it for 3 years? Get the stone remounted. She'll never know. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Talk Live. Moments remain here. Enough time for you if you want to join us. The number 603-283-6160. Whether you want to talk about government spending way too much money on trash cans.
How much did you pay for? I'm just curious. What did this trash can cost? $15?
Maybe
$20? And that's
probably
mostly,
not even that.
And that's mostly for the cost of the actual plastic.
Yeah.
And it works just fine. Does its job.
Well, obviously they need a larger trash can. We're talking about the kind of trash cans that are in a downtown area. You've got to have a large can there, and I understand they want to have it secure. You can't just leave those things sitting out, or people will take them and throw them around. And so I do
just
understand
make it heavy or bolt it to the street or whatever. I mean, there are ways to solve all of these problems.
Yeah, well, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to solve all of the problems. And
yes, but some of these aren't problems. Like the homeless guy trying to eat the half-eaten hot dog out of there. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Or the guy who's trying to take the shirt out of there because he's cold at night. That's also not a problem.
I get that it is a problem when they light them on fire. I get that it is a problem when they dump them out and then make a huge mess where there already was a mess and make it worse. So I understand the concerns. But ultimately, what we really ought to point out is this stems from the fact that this is public property. That this shouldn't be the problem of the city, because there shouldn't be a city government in the first place. It should be every business has their own property and they decide how to keep it. They decide what kind of trash cans that they want to put on it, what they're willing to spend on it. We don't need the one-size-fits-all decision where some group of 11 people, in this case in San Francisco, decides to spend $500,000 on just simply designing potential new trash cans because they can't find one that they just think is perfect in whatever way, and then force those across an entire city. We could have a bunch of different things that are being tried on different people's property if everybody were just free to make those decisions for themselves. But we're not. So instead we have tragedy of the commons where these public managers try to just make these decisions, and it ends up costing millions of dollars in the end. Because this has been going on for years.
Yeah, it's just $450,000 or whatever it was this year.
That one time, yeah.
Yeah, they probably spent more last year and spent more the year before and spent more the year before, and it's never going to stop, right? The garbage can was pretty much perfected the moment it was invented. There's not a whole lot you can do to improve on it. You need a place that can store a bag and that won't blow away in the wind or whatever. And that's more or less all that they need.
Well,
the rest of these issues are just never going. The possibility of people setting them on fire, you're never going to eliminate that possibility.
The problem, one of the problems, of course, is homeless people aren't really known for being the cleanest of individuals. They're not really known for being. I mean, I'm speaking generally. I'm sure there are some homeless people out there that are meticulous and they're very concerned with litter and all that. But generally, you don't think of that when you think of a homeless person. You think of somebody smelling like urine and yet laying down out in the sidewalks near businesses. And again, that's part of the public property problem. The fact that sidewalks, streets, are generally not considered to be private property in most places, especially in downtown areas. And so that's why you see people sleeping. I mean, we don't see it here in Keene, but I've been to Manhattan, and I've literally walked by people just sleeping outside of a Dwayne Reed store or something like that, the equivalent of a Walgreens. I've seen that happening. And I've smelled the urine being just walking down normal streets, not talking like you're in an alleyway or something, like just massive scents of urine all over the place. It's disgusting. But that's because it's public property. So what happens when we have a private property system, which is sort of like one of the libertarian visions for what things would be like, is every property would be privately owned. Well, then those business owners would be responsible for keeping their property clean, for making sure that people park where they're supposed to park, and making sure there's not some bum sitting out front hitting up the customers for cash as they walk into their shopping experience. Generally, I think you would see less homelessness in areas where people tend to go. I also think you would see properties that would be friendly to homeless people.
Certainly.
For instance, there is a property here in Keene that years ago was controversial because it's what they call the Hannaford Shopping Center here in Keene. It was owned by a leftist who he's a businessman, but he's also a leftist, and so he was letting the homeless people live in the forested part of the property.
And he wanted to continue doing this.
Correct, but the city of Keene came in and said, "Oh, well, you don't have these buildings, aren't?" Because they'd had like a shanty or whatever they'd thrown together, a shack, and oh, this wasn't built up to code. We're going to have to force you to take this down, and we're going to kick everybody out, and because we said so. We're the city. And so you get a lot of situations like what's happening now, apparently. And I did find a story that I'd had in show preps from earlier this year. We just never got to it. It was a perfect time to bring it up. The AP reporting that so-called liberal cities are now cracking down on homeless camps. For a long time, they had been the sort of the safety places for homeless people to go to. They supposedly were too welcoming to the homeless, in some cases letting them set up tents outside of city halls, for instance. But now the mayor of Portland has recently banned camping on the sides of certain roadways, and officials are exploring other aggressive options to combat homelessness. An increasing number of liberal cities like Portland, Seattle, and New York are cracking down on encampments after years of tolerating growing numbers of people living in tents. They justify the moves by citing recent violent homeless outbursts, littered encampments labeled as health concerns, and increasing homeless deaths. But advocates for people experiencing homelessness have denounced the maneuvers, saying the homeless crisis is being treated as a blight or a chance for cheap political gains. Makeshift shelters are about busy roadways, tent cities line sidewalks, tarps cover broken down cars, and sleeping bags are tucked in storefront doorways. The reality of the homelessness crisis in Oregon's largest city can't be denied.
Well, look, and I understand why it makes people uncomfortable to walk by these places or whatever, but banning it isn't going to make anything any better for anyone. I understand you don't want to walk down, you don't want to go into your Barnes & Noble or whatever and walk past a bunch of people living out of their cars with tarps over the broken windows or whatever. That makes you uncomfortable. I understand. I get it. Deal with it. This is the world that you've made, that you with your Barnes & Noble, you're in part responsible for that situation.
Well, it's really the city and the government's responsibility in this case, because they're the ones who pushed these people into homelessness, many of them in the first place. You've got people now, with the exception of those that choose it, because there's obviously a certain lifestyle of, I don't want to have a house, I don't want to have, property or whatever, and good on them. But then there's a lot of people that are sort of forced into the situation. Maybe they got arrested because of the war on drugs, got out of prison, they lost their apartment, now they're homeless, right? That's one example of what can happen to people. Another one could be that drug addiction, they can't pay their rent, so they're out on the streets or whatever, and there's no help for people because those people are criminalized in a lot of cases. You can't go to the police, they're not going to help you, they're going to put you into a jail cell for that. And then of course you've got the restrictions on building. The government restricts what kinds of buildings can be erected, and they restrict low-cost housing in a lot of cases. And so you can't just have people building their own homes and living where they want to live, because the government will literally come in and burn you out of your home.
And then you try to, start your own company or whatever, so you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps,
Nope,
as they love saying. But nope, can't do that.
I'm going to go to Law Dog. He's in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Law Dog.
Yeah, I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
All right.
These homeless people that sit there around the corners, they just want money for drugs, okay? I remember one time I was down near McDonald's there off of First Street in Austin, Texas, and this one guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, sir, could you spare $1 so I could buy a hamburger?" I says, "I can do better than that, bro." I says, "Come on over here. I just volunteered at the food pantry, and I started bagging some stuff. I had 2 bags." He goes, "Oh, I can't eat all that." He says, "Well, I thought you were hungry." I says, "I thought you were hungry." He says, "To be perfectly honest, sir, I just wanted $1 so I can buy a beer." I says, "Hey, next time just be honest with me, because I got some beer right here. I just put a 12-pack in the cooler." So I go over there and I pick one out, and, I hand him the beer. And he looks at me and he said, like I invented cold beer. I says, "It's cold." And I says, "What do you think I am, some butthole that runs around handing out warm beer to homeless people?"
Okay.
Yeah.
He was.
No, those
I
people
don't understand. Are you saying he was upset at the beer?
You try to give them food, they will curse you and and then the cops will come.
This guy didn't curse you, though.
Oh, wait.
I mean, you told a story about a relatively pleasant transaction you had with this guy, and then ended with, and this guy will curse you, and then the cops will come. That's 100% counter to the story you literally just told us.
I wasn't clear. Was he upset about the beer being cold?
This guy was, hey, I'm talking. This guy was cool. He tried to get one over on me to get a beer. He tried to scam me. I gave him the beer and it was cold. I did my job.
Was he mad about the beer being cold?
Did my job.
Okay, but was he upset about the beer?
If you want to talk about something else?
No, we don't have time. Out of time for tonight. But
that was weird.
You can call another time. It was really kind of disjointed, but okay. I'm glad you gave him a beer then. Whatever. I do agree that it's a better idea to give a homeless person a sandwich than to give them $5. Because then, are they really hungry? Then you find out. See you tomorrow.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an